property. It's probably not the first one that they're going to go after, even though it's worth $75 million. There are some other reasons why she wouldn't necessarily go after that, including the fact that Trump has a lot more legal leeway given the fact that he currently lives there, but it's worth $75 million. Maybe they'll eventually go after it, but at this particular point, it doesn't look like the first one that they'll go after.
It looks pretty clear that is probably going to be Seven Springs.
Yes.
There's also the bank accounts that is much easier to,
yes, absolutely,
to put a hold on. Harry Anton, always a pleasure.
Pleasure was all mine.
John.
So moments ago, Donald Trump posted on social media, he said he is being forced to sell his babies, which might come as news to Ivanka and Don, maybe not Eric, we will see. With us now, Leo Jacobs, a commercial litigation and bankruptcy attorney, and attorney Lenny Morrison-Cummins, who has mediated fraud claims before the New York Attorney General's office. Leo, I just want to walk through the mechanics of what could happen starting today. If the Attorney General decides, you know, I'm done waiting, how does it work? How does she get a hold of a bank account or a property?
Very simply, you put out a notice, the AG's office puts out a notice, which functions as an execution. After the execution, it gets sent out to a sheriff. The sheriff has to deliver, right? He has to levy assets. There's two types of assets in the world: personal property, real property. So say, for example, she wants to sell 40 Wall Street. There's an execution that's sent out to the sheriff. The sheriff puts out a notice. Donald Trump has 8 weeks to do something about it. With the real property, personal property, she sends out an execution through the sheriff to a bank account, say Chase bank account. He has about 2 to 3 weeks to do something about it. And the something about it that he has to do is really get a protective order. It's a fancy way of saying, you know what, you got to pause or halt this enforcement proceedings because I want to limit, condition, and modify the judgment. That's the process.
So sheriff asks for money, Donald Trump tries to block it, but the sheriff goes in there and ultimately can get her or his hands on it.
Correct.
All right, Lenny, talk to me about the properties themselves here, because Harry was putting up on the board there are a lot of different values, but it isn't exactly forgetting how much they're actually worth, which is a whole separate issue here. But who owns which parts of them in a lot of these Trump properties seems to be an issue also.
Exactly, and real property is a lot more complicated, unfortunately, than going after cash in a bank account. These buildings in particular, all these properties, Trump owns them most likely in a labyrinth of LLCs and with joint venture partners. So in fact, determining what his ownership stake is in each of them is going to be difficult. Not to mention the fact that there's probably mortgages and other creditors in line. So it's going to take a little bit of time.
So what does that mean? There are other people in line here. Where will New York State be in line if it wants to get some value out of said property?
Yeah, the general rule is, first in time, first in right. So we're coming where we are now. So New York State is going to take its place in line. So for each of these properties, there's going to be a pretty difficult analysis to determine which ones to attack first. And that's probably why they're looking at Westchester first.
And if you had a choice between a bank account and a property, which would you choose?
It would depend on how much money is in the bank accounts, right? So if there's a lot of money in the bank accounts and you can discover that through a notice, it's a very simple process. You put out a notice and they'll tell them right away how much money is in there. Or you go after the real property. Real property is going to depend on what type of liens there are and how many liens there are. So the analysis, I think, is taking place at the AG's office as we speak.
What's a fire sale and how could that impact the ability to get any of this money?
Yeah, if lots of property comes on the market right at the same time or in a rush fashion or auction, it's possible that the prices will be down into the ground and it will potentially devalue his assets.
Do you feel like that's a real option here? I mean, it's thrown around. Do you think it'll really happen?
You know what? It's really hard to tell what's going to happen, and it's going to depend a lot on what equity is remaining in these buildings and these properties.
And another thing I want to clear up here, just so for the mortals out there, when we talk about putting a lien on something, what exactly does that mean? Can the Attorney General do it, and what would the impact be?
So let's differentiate between, I guess, what a lien would be and what a restraining notice would be. When you're sending out a restraining notice, it's a fancy way of saying, hey, Donald, you can't move your assets, you can't sell your assets. As opposed to a lien, it says, hey, Donald, I have a lien now that if you sell or you attempt to sell those assets, even if I told you you didn't, I'm going to have to be paid in the regular ordinary course of business relative to the creditors. So that's really the difference.
How much will we know by the end of today, do you think?
Gosh, it's anyone's guess.
Well, I would say that we're going to know a lot because the deadline, I think, is today to put the bond up. And if there's a failure of putting up that bond, Donald Trump is going to have to move quite swiftly in getting a protective order.
Leo Jacobs, great to see you. Lenny Morrison-Cummins, thank you so much for your help here.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Thank you.
All right, ahead, you might call it second winter for some states. They're being slammed with a snowstorm. And in other states, dangerous weather, whipping winds, and potential threats of tornadoes. We have the latest on the severe weather system affecting 25 million Americans. And we are still watching for Donald Trump to leave for a New York courthouse. That should happen in any moment. A judge could decide today when a criminal trial against him will begin.
If you work in spaceflight, this is the worst thing that can happen.
Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight, premieres Sunday, April 7th at 9 on CNN.
Humpty Dumpty does it with a great fall. Wonderful pistachios. Get cracking.
Old Spice Gentleman's Super Hydration Body Wash. Vanilla and shea. 24/7 moisturization with vitamin B3.
Are you using all the Old Spice?
Oops. Life, diabetes. There's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna. Bring on the day.
All your streaming in one app with one password. Find your happy place.
It's a new day, one where our shared values propel us towards a more secure future. Through AUKUS, a partnership built upon cutting-edge American, Australian, and British technologies, we'll develop state-of-the-art, next-generation submarines and build something stronger together, securing decades of peace and prosperity for America and our allies. We are going forward and staying forward together.
Protect your vehicle with SmartLiner's custom-fit full-coverage floor liners. Precisely engineered for a perfect fit. Rigid sidewalls ensure our liners won't curl at the edges. The easy-to-clean, rubberized texture offers an outstanding grip for your vehicle, and high signs provide unparalleled spill protection. Backed by a lifetime warranty and expert customer service. Make the smart, affordable choice. SmartLiner.
There's two things a young man want to be. Cowboy or a gangster. And a gangster is out of style. I got back to my roots. We come from a long line of cowboys. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my aunt even rode horses. When I see all of us out here on this ranch, I see how far our legacy can go.
As a cardiologist, when I put my patients on a statin to reduce cholesterol, I also tell them it can deplete their CoQ10 levels. I recommend taking Cunol CoQ10. Cunol has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol, the brand I trust.
I've been having stomach troubles. It's either yogurt, pork, or citrus. Or almonds. Or maybe it's cinnamon. Now, I could start by removing a lot of things from my diet and adding them back in one at a time until I find the culprit. Or I could find out what might actually be bothering me before removing and adding foods back in again. I'm gonna do that.
Inside every Splenda product is a mission to help people live happier, healthier, longer lives by making it easier to reduce sugar. With a delicious sweet taste and quality you can trust, we take pride that every day millions say, I use Splenda.
Every night, we are going straight to the source. We begin with the breaking news tonight. going inside the biggest stories. Where is the common ground between you and the Senate and the White House? Getting straight to the facts. How would you hold Putin accountable for Navalny's death? Uncovering the truth. Can you tell Americans why they should trust their taxpayer dollars with you? And sharing the latest with you.
The Source with Caitlin Collins, tonight at 9.
So tonight's Powerball jackpot is now $800 million, and nobody won in Friday night's Mega Millions drawing, so that prize is more than $1 billion. So you can go out and buy tickets for 2 lotteries you likely will not win. Happening now, blizzard warnings from Colorado to Minnesota and parts of the southeast, including Texas and the Midwest. 25 million people are in the path of severe storms, and there are fears of tornadoes as well. Happening today, LA Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani is expected to address the sports betting allegations against his former interpreter. That interpreter is accused of stealing millions of dollars and placing bets for the former bookie under federal investigation, but he has said that Ohtani was not involved in the betting. Still, Ohtani hasn't spoken about this yet. There are a lot of questions surrounding this whole incident. Sarah?
All right. This morning, 4 men accused of killing at least 137 people at a concert hall outside Moscow are facing terrorism charges. It was Russia's worst terrorist attack in decades. The suspect appears in court. They are visibly beaten up and injured, one seemingly missing an eye. Joining me now is CNN contributor, former CNN Moscow bureau chief, Jill Doherty. Jill, it's so nice to see you. One of the things that struck me here is that Russia and the United States, sworn enemies at this point, and yet the U.S. says it warned Russia that a potential terrorist attack would take place. What is this relationship like when it comes to intelligence? How does that work?
Well, the United States says that it had a duty to inform. And so regardless of what the country is, it will inform if it understands that some type of terrorist attack is going to take place. And the U.S. says that's exactly what they did with Russia. Now, and they say they did it directly. So this presents a real problem for Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin, because right now they're trying to explain how this happened and then avoid blame for Vladimir Putin. And that is not easy. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of kind of, messaging and unclear obfuscation, et cetera. Essentially what they're saying is, we don't have any communication, we, the Kremlin, don't have any communication with the West or the Westerners. However, maybe our security services do. But the whole thing is, did Vladimir Putin ignore this warning? We know that he, on the record, said he called it blackmail and an attempt to undermine Russia. So it's a real problem for the Kremlin.
I was going to ask you what you think it might do to his narrative with the people of Russia, that he was unable to safeguard the country and there was a warning in place.
Yeah, I think that is really the question, because this is not the first time that there have been attacks that have really been brutal over the years, 24 years with Putin, and there really have been a lot of attacks. And each time there was, I would say, an undercurrent of people feeling that they were unprotected, that the government simply couldn't take care of them. And now here you have Vladimir Putin just days ago, a week ago, being reelected to a 5th term, and this happens. So that undermines I think the idea among Russians that he really is their protector. That said, the Kremlin is going to try to very quickly, veer it off in another direction thanks to state media and propaganda and say, well, it's just part of international terrorism and we should cooperate, but they're not cooperating with us because of the war in Ukraine. I mean, a lot of this, obviously, is in the context of the war against Ukraine.
I wanted to ask you about that. Russia is still trying to link this attack to Ukraine while also saying that these 4 men are from Tajikistan, and at the same time they're hammering Ukraine with strikes. I mean, could this propaganda work to its people? Because certainly it is not going to work with the international community. I think Vice President Kamala Harris was asked whether or not the United States thinks Ukraine had any role in it. She flatly said no, that this is ISIS-K.
Yeah, I think that it could, Sarah, because after all, for average Russians, they are watching TV, and on TV, there is no opposition media whatsoever. It's all, the state messaging and propaganda. And so if they feel, and they're already set up for this by Russian propaganda, that the West is against them and Ukraine is just a pawn of the United States and NATO, et cetera, they could believe that. I think, when in a situation like this, which is truly traumatizing, this is just a horrendous attack, that people want to understand it. And the fear that's being generated right now and the propaganda might come together to convince people, we have to stand by our president because after all, we're under attack.
All right, I do want to ask you about the 4 accused terrorists who Russia says are from Tajikistan. They were severely beaten at some point. One person looked like they were missing an eye. One came out with a plastic bag sort of over his head. There's video of this. How does this play in the Russian public, that these men may have been beaten and tortured by Russia's law enforcement apparatus?
I think they'll probably look at it with 2 different viewpoints. One is those guys were terrorists. They deserve everything they got. And then the other side of it is the brutality. I'm not saying this, we have to see the proof, but the brutality of Russian security forces, not only for terrorists, but for actually opposition people who have come on the streets against the war in Ukraine. We've seen the video, people being beaten and dragged off. So it's hard, I think, for Russians to really accept all of this. It's very frightening to think that you are alone. But I can tell you, I've seen on social media comments exactly like that. We have no one to protect us. It's a terrible situation for some Russians.
Yeah, and there have been thousands of people going out and laying flowers. A lot of sorrow in Russia after 137 people killed in that terror attack. Jill Dougherty, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Sarah.
John.
All right, this morning the call is coming from inside the building. A lot of people inside NBC not at all happy that former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel has been hired by the network, and the criticisms very public and on TV. Listen.
We believe NBC News should seek out conservative Republican voices to provide balance in their election coverage. But it should be conservative Republicans, not a person who used her position of power to be an anti-democracy election denier. And we hope NBC will reconsider its decision. It goes without saying that she will not be a guest on Morning Joe in her capacity as a paid contributor.
CNN's Oliver Darcy is with us now. Oliver, any sign NBC is reconsidering here?
Well, they're dealing with a fire alarm fire, John. I mean, comments like this from inside the building on the air are remarkable to see. And today was Morning Joe. Yesterday was Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, absolutely ripping the network for this hire. And as you heard Mika Brzezinski say there, it's not because she's a Republican. It's because she was an active participant in trying to subvert democracy back in 2020. That's the issue here. She was an election denier, but she was active participant in trying to basically overthrow the election over in Michigan. And so that's the bright red line. The NBC journalists are really upset was crossed by their brass here. And also she has a long history, John, we should mention, demonizing the press. You know, this is not someone who is just slightly critical. This is someone who launched really ugly attacks, vile attacks on MSNBC anchors over the years. She launched ugly attacks on NBC News journalists over the years, even questioning why some of them have jobs. And so for NBC News then to bring her on as part of the team, as they said, really struck people the wrong way. Now, what they do, I'm not sure. They're dealing with a huge public relations disaster, to say the least, and I sense it's only growing. You know, when you have anchors like this speaking on the air, it gives you a sense of how enraged the journalists are behind the scenes. And so over at NBC, Caesar Conde, who's the chair of NBC Universal News Group. He has a decision to make. What is he going to do? I think it's going to speak volumes about not only him, but what NBC News represents as an organization moving forward.
Well, a lot of people watching the What's Next very closely. Oliver Darcy, thank you so much for your report.
What's that?
This is CNN breaking news.
What's that, brother?
All right, at any moment, Donald Trump is expected to arrive at a New York City courthouse. He faces quite a day.
He does.
What's that?
One case that could land him behind bars, the other
What's that, brother?
puts his fortune, his properties, and honestly, maybe his pride at risk. Trump will appear in front of a judge for a hearing in his criminal hush money case. This involves adult film star Stormy Daniels and his former fixer Michael Cohen. The judge today could set a trial date. We do expect Trump to speak before he goes into court. Now, this is a location he has been known to rant.
But that's not even the most pressing issue today for Trump. The deadline has arrived today for the former president to pay the $464 million bond in his New York civil fraud case. If he is unable to do that, New York's AG is set to go after his bank accounts and business properties. CNN's Caitlin Collins is outside the court in New York City for us. Caitlin, what are you expecting today? How is it going to play out?
I mean, that is a great question, Sarah. It could really be anything that we are witnessing today as these two crises are facing Trump and confronting him, both here happening in the same city, because it is at this courthouse here behind us where we are seated here in New York, where Trump could soon find out when exactly he could be the first former president to go on criminal trial. But as we are waiting to figure out what is happening with that case, of course, Trump is facing something that is consuming him much more, and that is this bond that he has been unable to have a giant, any kind of insurance giant, underwrite it. His attorneys have not said in the last several days whether or not he has been able to find any solution to that. And we know today is when that 30-day grace period lapses, which means that the attorney general could move here to enforce that soon. And you can see that this is what Trump is much more concerned about when you just look at his own social media on Truth Social, posting just in the last half hour about this, saying that he could be forced to sell his, quote, babies, obviously a reference there to his assets that could be on the line as he is now trying to figure out how to handle this solution. But right now his legal team and the former president himself are preparing to enter this courthouse behind us. We have CNN's Paula Reed and Kristen Holmes here with me, as we are often always so out here in front of the courthouse. And Paula, obviously, we'll talk about what's happening with the bond, but what's happening behind us is remarkable in and of itself, because today was supposed to be the first day that Trump is going on trial, and instead now his team is trying to get it dismissed. At least we know there is going to be a delay until April 15th. What is going to happen inside that courthouse today?
So this morning, Trump's lawyers, instead of beginning the first criminal trial against former President Trump, they're going to argue for why this should be postponed even further. They want 90 days or dismissed outright, because just a few weeks ago, the federal government, so the Justice Department, handed over 100,000 documents, new pieces of evidence. Now, this is a state case, and this new evidence came from the Justice Department related to its investigation and prosecution of Michael Cohen, who is at the heart of this hush money case, where they allege Trump paid hush money to Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 election to help his chances, they say, in that race. And then they charged him with falsifying business records to cover up why he was paying Michael Cohen back. So Cohen is a key part of this. And Trump's lawyers argue, look, we need 90 days to go through all of this. We believe that some of this is exculpatory or helpful to our client. The district attorney, though, says, no, actually only a small portion of this is relevant, and if it helps anyone, it helps us. So we think it's a long shot bid for them to dismiss this case, but what we are looking for today is if they set a new trial date, and if so, is it 30, 60, or even 90 days out?
And if it's delayed, I mean, that's the question, but they are ultimately seeking to have it dismissed. But does Trump's legal team really think that could be what they walk out of this courthouse today with?
I have not heard that. I mean, when I'm talking to the legal team, they think that, again, we know that they'll throw anything at the wall, and that's what they should do, right? They are exhausting every avenue. That's what Donald Trump pays them to do, is to try and delay each of these cases, to go down every single pathway that they can. And there's a lot of stuff, even when you talk about the immunity case in the Supreme Court, that they don't believe is actually going to be successful. well. But one of the things they are hoping for here is more and more delays, particularly butting this up against that November election. When they're talking about heading into November, they already feel like this case of the multiple criminal trials or cases that he is facing is the most easy for them to paint as political. So particularly the closer they get to the election, that for them is a win.
Can we talk about what's actually in these documents? Because I know all of it relates back, as it seems to always with this case, is to Michael Cohen. And Michael Cohen himself has said, these are his texts, his phone calls, all of these documents they were unable to get their hands on before. I mean, and clearly the prosecution here realizes there was a bit of a mistake with that because they agreed to at least a 30-day delay in this so they could sort through it. Do we know if it actually would be anything that's exculpatory for Donald Trump?
Well, again, there's fingers being pointed both ways, right, for why there is a delay and for who will actually benefit here. It's our understanding that most of these documents are related to the search warrants that were executed in the Cohen investigation. So these are things going back years about his investigation for campaign finance violations and tax violations. It's unclear who this would exactly help in this case. The biggest question right now, though, is why the Justice Department took so long to hand this over. We know the Trump team subpoenaed this information in January. The Trump team has suggested that somehow the district attorney, the state level prosecutors, have delayed them receiving this evidence, but the district attorney points to them and says, no, you intentionally delayed this. You waited till January to subpoena this as part of your delay strategy. So right now there's a lot of confusion about exactly what is in these documents, who will help, and why it took so long. I've talked to former Justice Department officials, folks who have worked in the Southern District of New York, and they agree this is very unusual, and it has already had the effect of delaying what was expected to be the first and possibly the only criminal case to go before the election.
And we know we're going to see Donald Trump. He's expected to leave Trump Tower shortly. We're preparing for him to arrive here. Obviously, this is a courthouse he's become intimately familiar with, but it's clear, Kristen, that what's bothering him much more is what's happening with this bond that is only growing by $100,000 a day with the interest. His team so far has not said that they have found someone, magically to be able to help that after saying that they had approached 30 different places and not been able to find anything. What have you heard from people about what they expect to happen today?
Yeah, almost entirely radio silence in terms of whether or not he's going to be able to post that bond and how he would get that money or get those assets. Now, obviously you've heard from Donald Trump. I mean, this goes to the core of who he is. This essentially for him is an embarrassment because you're talking about seizing assets, you're talking about not having the money. I mean, to the point where he's posting online, actually I do have the cash, but it's really hard. I was going to put towards my campaign. And then you have lawyers being like, no, he doesn't actually have the cash.
And we should note he hasn't spent money on his own campaign since 2016.
Yeah, exactly. And there's been no indication also from his campaign since early on that he was going to spend any of his own money. In fact, at one point I was told that he offered very early on when there was very little money to give a little bit, and they told him not to because they didn't want to go down that pathway. So no indication at all that he was going to give this kind of cash to his own campaign. But again, him claiming he has it because here we are talking about the fact that Donald Trump does not have the assets he needs, does not have the money to post the bond. And that to him, it hits him at his core because he wants to be portrayed as a successful, wealthy businessman.
Well, and I think what everyone wants to know is what the Attorney General is going to do today, because today she can freeze bank accounts, she could start seizing assets, but it's much more complicated than that. It's not as simple as just going up to Trump Tower with the sheriff and then she has the deed, because how Trump has structured his ownership, it's something that would take a complicated process to actually unwind that. What's our sense of what the AG is going to do?
So there's a legal and then there's political. Legally, we know she is laying the groundwork to possibly seize assets in Westchester County outside Manhattan. She has filed certain pieces of paper that would allow her to go after assets there. But like you said, it's a process, and seizing property is much more complicated than trying to seize cash assets within banks. But this is a legal avenue she can pursue. It's a process. Like you said, we don't expect it to happen today, but there's also the optics. There's the political. I mean, there's an argument to be made that if you start seizing some of Trump's buildings, particularly the more iconic ones, that politically that could help him. Because the idea of seizing personal property in a case that they have tried so hard hard to paint as politically motivated, that's something that could really not sit well potentially with certain groups of voters. So she has a lot of options if he can't post this bond. Cash is easier to get with the proper paperwork than it is to seize property, but she's clearly laying the groundwork, and it appears that she's eyeing his properties in Westchester County if she has to go that way.
Yeah, and even if it's politically beneficial, it's still something that has clearly struck a nerve, to say the least, with the former president. Kristen and Paula, we will be here all morning, John, of course, talking about this and waiting to see when the former president himself arrives here. One thing to note, John, he has filed an appeal and is trying to get an appeals court to either waive that he has to put up that entire bond. We have not heard from them yet, John. They typically only rule on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, it isn't clear when or if or how they would rule today, but nothing on the schedule. It's also not exactly clear when or how or where the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, would actually start to begin seizing assets or even money. So we're watching that very closely, too, as the day continues. Caitlin, we'll come back to you in just a second. In the meantime, there is the breaking news. We got word that the CEO of Boeing, Dave Calhoun, says he is going to step down by the end of the year. In a letter to employees, Calhoun called the Alaska Airlines door plug incident a, quote, watershed moment for Boeing. He said he intends to leave by the end of the year. So too will the company's chairman and the head of the commercial aviation unit. Let's get right to CNN's Pete Muntean, who's got all the latest here. Pete, what have you learned?
Well, the irony here is that Dave Calhoun came into power after the MAX 8 incidents of 2018 and 2019 that killed 346 people abroad. Now he is leaving as a result of another incident on the MAX line, the January 5th Alaska Airlines door plug blowout. The NTSB found in its preliminary report that Boeing forgot to reinsert the 4 critical bolts at the Renton, Washington factory, something that Calhoun himself described as a quality escape. The irony here is very significant. Also, the surprise that Calhoun is not leaving immediately and did not leave any earlier after he made this personal plea on Capitol Hill to the top senators overseeing aviation that Boeing airplanes are safe, and that he's made pleas to airline CEOs that have apparently lost faith in Calhoun, leading to his departure at the end of 2024. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby says it is in question about whether or not the airline will follow through with its orders of the MAX 10 plane. Also, there's been a lot of questions from Alaska Airlines CEO Ben Minucci. They want $150 million in repayments from Boeing and damages following the door plug blowout. They had to cancel a few hundred flights each day as a result of those issues. There's also some big questions here about whether or not this should have happened a lot earlier. There's been so much criticism of the workers on the factory floor, and they did a safety stand down and were reminded by Boeing to make sure that every part is in place. Also leaving with Calhoun are Stan Deal, the head of commercial airplanes division for Boeing. Also Larry Kellner, the board chair at Boeing. The only other person to leave Boeing ahead of this was a relative no-name to people at home, the man who led the MAX program. This is really significant here, John, and the fact that Calhoun is out now is really underscoring the trouble that Boeing is in.
Yeah, it really shows you how seriously they are taking it, though there are still questions about how he'll manage to stick around for the remaining weeks and months that he says he will. Pete Muntean, thanks so much for this information. Sarah?
All right. Former President Donald Trump, we are seeing now, leaving Trump Tower, heading to face off in 2 cases. One, which could be the very first criminal trial he faces if there are no more delays, and the other, that big bond hearing where he has to pay $464 million, or else the AG may start trying to seize his assets. Also, the former president lashing out on Truth Social this morning. More of our special coverage ahead as you see Donald Trump heading to that court. We may hear from him even in the next few minutes.
Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight, premieres Sunday, April 7th at 9 on CNN.
Clogged gutters can cause big problems fast. Until now. Call 833 Leaf Filter today for your free gutter inspection.
I've had terrible flooding problems on my porch. Now I understand why.
Right now, Leaf Filter is offering a free inspection on your schedule. Leaf Filter is a permanent gutter solution, so you never have to worry about costly damage from clogged gutters again.
Call us today and schedule your free inspection.
To schedule your free inspection, call 833-LEAF-FILTER today or visit leaffilter.com.
Is your shower trying to tell you something? Is getting in and out of the bathtub becoming a safety concern? Are you worried about the cost of a bathroom remodel that could go on for weeks and weeks? Well, now you can have a gorgeous new bath or shower that's safer at a price you can afford with a one-day jacuzzi bath remodel.
It was done the same day. We did not have to wait. It is amazing.
Working with the jacuzzi design consultants, it was a seamless process, and there really is an option for everyone.
I would give this whole experience an A+. I definitely wish I would have called sooner.
Jacuzzi has been making water feel great for more than 65 years, so you know it's a brand you can trust, and their products come with a lifetime warranty for a style you'll love for years to come. Plus, there has never been a better time to buy. We're giving you 50% off installation and postponing all payments for up to 1 year. There are so many designs to choose from, including my Christina Preferred collection. Plus, we offer free personalized in-home design services to build the bath you've always wanted, right in your own space. And let's talk about accessories. From soft close shower doors and adjustable shower heads to features like grab bars and custom seats that combine safety and style to keep you feeling comfortable and independent for years to come. Plus, cleanup's a breeze with no grimy grout and no scrubbing. It just rinses clean. It's never been easier. Get your free design consultation, schedule your one-day installation, and start loving your new bath or shower right away.
Call or go online for a limited time offer. Only weeks left to get 50% off installation and no interest and no payments for up to 1 year, plus a free safety upgrade. Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-990-6979. That's 800-990-6979. Call now.
Childhood cancer it's a long road. It's hard, but St. Jude has gotten us through it. St. Jude is hope that you have a chance at life. And it goes such a long way for every child diagnosed with cancer because the research is being shared all over the world. It's awesome.
It's the most hosted show in late night. Put up your dukes! And they're back.
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Doing what they do best.
Every news outlet has different standards.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show is all new tonight at 11 on Comedy Central.
Consumer Cellular, this is Sam. How may I help you? This is a butt dial. Well, somebody's butt. Just thought I'd let you know that with Consumer Cellular, you can get the same exact coverage as the leading carriers, but for up to half the price.
These bills are crazy.
She has no idea she's sitting on a gold mine.
Well, she doesn't know that if she owns a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, she can sell all or part of it to Coventry for cash, even a term policy.
Even a term policy?
Even a term policy!
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-461-8800 or visit coventrydirect.com.
This is the big dance. It's time to dance.
Came through that door.
Just moments ago, we showed you Donald Trump leaving Trump Tower, and we expect to see him arrive any moment at a New York courthouse for a hearing in the hush money case against him. Also today, he is supposed to secure $464 million for the bond in the civil fraud judgment case that is now pending against him.
Yeah, he's got until today to come up with that money or else, although isn't exactly clear what or else is right now. With us now, former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Salan and former federal prosecutor Jennifer Rogers. And I do want to be transparent here. One of the things we're watching for is to see if Donald Trump talks at the courthouse where he is right now in a hearing in the criminal case. Why? Because I suppose it's possible he announces, you know what, we're not coming up with a bond conclusively today. We don't have the money, which means that Attorney General Letitia James, it's in your court. And then, Jennifer, then what?
Well, the problem here is there are assets all over the place, right? So Tish James has to decide where to go first. Do you go to a bank and you issue a judgment with a bank and try to freeze, and then seize a bank account? The real estate takes more time, so it's not even like just one thing where she walks into a clerk's office and plunks down the piece of paper and says, we've done it, right? So what she would do, I suppose, is disperse her people around to the assets she's decided to prioritize, which are going to be, I think, the bank accounts, and they'll start filing the papers. So I think we'll probably hear from her. She'll probably make a statement when she does that, if she does it today, tomorrow, whenever.
Jeremy, this case also, though, is pending because there is an appeal, and they're asking either to just throw it out and say, look, trust him, he's a guy that's got a lot of properties and money, you don't have to worry about this, or to knock down the number. Will the judge, or will she wait to see what happens there? Or do you think that this is something that she's like, we're going for this, this is the 30-day mark. She's already put in a plan to try to seize at least one property.
Absolutely, but I think it would be a smarter move to wait if we think the appeal is going to be decided in this week or soon thereafter, because you don't want to start that process only to roll it back. So I think, though, that she will go to the banks first, because that's easy. You've identified that asset. You can seize that asset. You send in New York City, it would be a sheriff, or you can send a marshal. They take a piece of that pie, and the rest of it goes to the state of New York. It's fairly simple, but I think she waits. It would be the smarter move, though certainly politically it would be a big statement if she did it just now.
Jennifer, again, we are waiting to see if Donald Trump chooses to speak as he heads into the criminal court right now. He has said some things over the last several days that raise eyebrows. Number one, he has said he has the money before. I'm wondering, when he speaks out loud, what he could say that would be a problem going forward.
So we have this appellate division motion, right, where he says, please knock down the amount. We can't do it. It's impossible, his lawyers have said. But then he comes out and says, I have the money. I just would rather spend it on my campaign. So if you're an appellate division judge and you're sitting with this motion saying it's impossible, we can't do it, that has to give you pause about the truth of that, right? So I think it does make it less likely that the court will intervene if he's saying, I have the money, it's just that I want to use it for something else.
And to be clear, he has not put any money towards a campaign yet. So interesting wording there in his Truth Social. I do want to ask you about the case where he is going right now, and he's headed there at this moment. We're watching his car coming up to the courthouse. You know, this has been delayed already till April 15th, but there were 100,000 documents the DOJ sort of held on to, last minute hands them over. His attorneys say, hey, we have to have time to go through this, and they have. What else might cause this to be delayed? Because they're asking not only for a delay, but they're asking for it to be thrown out, as any defense attorney would.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is the timing. And I know could there be more documents. That 100,000 on its face seems like a lot. It may very well not be a lot. It may not all be relevant. Some of it may be easy to parse through. But I think that's going to be the main thrust of his argument, because we already have a decision. I believe it was March 18th, Mershon issued a decision, and it addressed what we call Molyneux about certain things coming into evidence. So he's already addressed a lot of the substantive issues or underlying issues. So I think today it's just what we've said many, many times, that big D, not Donald, delay, delay, delay.
But what have we learned from this judge so far, Jennifer, in terms of how he's approaching this case in general?
So he's working towards a trial. He issued a terse order when all of this kind of came to light about these documents, saying, if necessary, I will set a trial date after this hearing. But since then, he's ruled on some motions, and he seems to be moving towards a swift trial here. But he's no nonsense. He's very experienced. I think he's a good choice for this trial. Not that he was chosen, it was wheeled out. But it's a good draw, like Judge Kaplan was in the E. Jean Carroll case, because when you have a jury, you have to be very careful about controlling the courtroom and controlling this defendant in particular. I think Judge Marchand's going to be up to that.
You think we'll know by the end of the day the trial date?
I do.
All right, Jennifer Rogers, Jeremy Salan, we are standing by for that. That will be big news when it happens. Also, big news, Donald Trump will arrive at that court shortly. We do expect him to speak. He likes to talk / rant on the way in. And as you just heard from our esteemed law firm here, what he says could be potentially dangerous, not for this case necessarily, but for the huge civil judgment against him. So we are standing by to see how he approaches it. Stay with us.
If you work in spaceflight, this is the worst possible thing that could ever happen. My dad died doing what he loved.
Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight. Premieres Sunday, April 7th at 9 on CNN.
This tiny home trend
not for me. Now, this is more like it. The same goes for my footwear. So I went hands-free with wide-fit Skechers slip-ins. Just step in and go without bending down or touching my shoes. Wide-fit, hands-free Skechers slip-ins.
This is our future, Ma. GoDaddy Aero creates a logo, website, even social posts in minutes.
Oh, AI. AI like it. Who wants to come see the future?
Get your business online in minutes with GoDaddy Aero.
Look at all those snacks. You must be a king.
I did just pay 60% less for my ticket with the Game Time app. It's the best place to get last-minute deals on tickets. I guess I'm just a better fan than you.
I gotta get the Game Time app.
Download the Game Time app to get great deals on last-minute tickets.
I was so excited to buy my first home, but I needed a lot of work done on it. I went on to Angie. Jamie was the first person to call. He's resurfaced my flooring, he's done plumbing work, he's refinished this beautiful table here.
Find top-rated certified pros in your area at Angie.com.
Meet Norman. He's part Jack Russell and part tornado. Meet the Bissell Crosswave Hydro Steam. It's part vacuum, mop, steamer, and tornado chaser. Bissell, a new breed of clean.
For gentle, dependable constipation relief, try Senecot. It works differently than other laxatives because it's made from the senna plant, a natural vegetable laxative ingredient. Gentle, dependable Senecot. Also available in delicious gummies.
It's the most hosted show in late night. Put up your nukes! And they're back.
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Doing what they do best.
Every news outlet has different standards.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show is all new tonight at 11 on Comedy Central.
With the Fundrise Innovation Fund, you can invest in some of the world's top tech companies, including those leading the AI revolution before they go public. The future is now open for investment.
Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun.
Book Sandals St. Vincent and the Grenadines in our winter blue sale. Visit sandals.com or call 1-800-SANDALS.
From the #1 rated brand in cordless outdoor power, the Ego Power Plus blower, reaching an incredible 765 CFM. And it runs up to 90 minutes on a single charge. Exclusively at Lowe's, Ace, and Ego authorized dealers.
At Long John Silver's, you'll be hooked on our $6 shrimp baskets, whether they're fried to golden perfection or sizzling on a grill. And now get even more bang for your batter when you upgrade to Jumbo Shrimp. Make us your first mate and order ahead to skip the wait. Long John Silver's, Fish Yeah.
Only Purple's Gel Flex Grid passes the raw egg test. No other mattress cradles your body and simultaneously supports your spine. Memory foam doesn't come close. Get your best sleep guaranteed. Right now, save up to $400. Visit purple.com or a store near you.
Tina used to worry about bad breath. Now,
Swishy time.
she uses TheraBreath mouthwash for 12 hours of fresh breath.
And it's non-burning, unlike our outfit, which is fire.
Try TheraBreath mouthwash.
It's a better mouthwash.
It's lunchtime, and Gary is double booked. Good thing Gary's company uses Otter's AI meeting assistant to take notes and generate a summary. So Gary doesn't miss a meeting and can regain his lunch break. Try now for free. Visit otter.ai or download the app.
Take control of your health by boosting your force field, the immune system. Aura tells you when your temperature is higher than normal. Live smarter, stronger, healthier with the Aura Ring.
Look, she's just sitting here building her credit by...
I forgot you were here.
Self gives you credit for the bills you're going to pay anyways. Then just sit back and watch your credit grow. Build your credit. Build credit, build savings, build dreams.
I'm Sunlen Sirfati in Washington, and this is CNN.
And right now, we are seeing Donald Trump arrive here at the courthouse in Manhattan. And in just moments, the door will open inside that courtroom for a hearing on his criminal hush money case. And we are expecting to potentially hear from the former president any moment as he exits his motorcade and is going to walk into that courtroom. This is a critical morning, not just for that case, and as the judge is expected to decide when and whether that trial can begin next month or whether or not it will be delayed again. But it also comes as that 30-day grace period from the Attorney General for Trump to put up that bond in his civil case has now lapsed, meaning she could potentially move to enforce it as soon as today. We have Paula Reed and Kristen Holmes back here with me. And obviously, Kristen, this is something that has been so sensitive for the former president because it speaks to this public perception that has always defined his identity, which is his wealth and how much money he has. And he was falsely claiming the other day that he had $500,000 and that he was expecting to use it for his campaign, even though we know he doesn't have that much based on what he has personally testified.
And his lawyers have said.
And his lawyers, and he wasn't expecting to use it for his campaign based on what we had seen. But talk about how he's been approaching this deadline himself personally.
I mean, this has been a really big deal for him because this idea that he doesn't have the funds, that he's going to show that he doesn't have the funds, is something that to him is deep-seated and humiliating. It's embarrassing to think that he's not this wealthy businessman. And as you've seen from Donald Trump for the last 8 years and really for the last several decades, one of Donald Trump's biggest parts of his brand is being a wealthy businessman, being the owner of Trump Tower, being the owner of Trump Force One now, the big plane. You know, he doesn't even do, by the way, press conferences on a tarmac unless he has his big plane that's branded so he can show off that he's flying in the big plane. This is all part of his identity. So the idea that he's going to come up short on $500 million is embarrassing to him. And it goes to the point of why he then is lashing out on Truth Social in a way that actually impacts him by saying, I do have the cash now, or I almost have the cash. Then you see his lawyer stepping in saying, no, we don't have the cash. Remember, the argument is that it's impossible to get this kind of money. Now, there is a kernel of truth when you're talking to these financial experts who say it is very difficult to come up with that kind of cash no matter how rich you are. People just aren't that liquid. The other part of this is that it's an unprecedented amount. So these underwriters are saying no, not just because it's Donald Trump, but because they've never had to put up that kind of a bond before. They were saying they would do $100 million, but not $400 or $500 million. But again, this all goes to the core of who he is, and you're going to see that today. I assume he'll go to the cameras. I assume he'll start talking about, at some point, that money, that bond, and how he thinks this is unfair.
Is it clear, Paula, how it affects the appeal itself? Because essentially why he had to put up that money is so he could carry through with the appeal. If he can't put up the money, can he still appeal this decision?
Yeah, I think he still has the right to appeal, but then that's where the district attorney, the attorney general would move forward, right? Because she needs that security. So she would move forward to potentially seize either cash assets or buildings and properties. But he has appealed not only the decision itself, but also the amount of bond that he needs to post. We don't expect to get a decision on that today. His lawyers have argued that it shouldn't be this much, right, to secure this verdict while the appeal goes forward. But he has long said, even before the decision came down from the judge, that he would appeal because he believes that there was no victim in the civil fraud case. He argues that it was politically motivated, it's unprecedented, and it's unclear how exactly they would prevail. There's no real factual dispute that the appeals court could look at and really glom onto to overturn that. So it's not expected that he will prevail in that appeal, but he certainly has the right to do so.
And his attorneys, I mean, Trump, there's always kind of this question of, will he pull a rabbit out of his hat at the 11th hour? I mean, he did it with E. Jean Carroll. It was truly the 11th hour when they did find someone to underwrite that bond. It was $100 million, but that was still even difficult for them. But here, you know, today has come and gone, or this morning has, where we have not heard from his legal team on what they plan to do. And I know there had been options floating around last week, going to a wealthy supporter. I mean, his attorney was asked, would they potentially get it from a foreign government or a foreign national?
And she said this is privileged information and did not give a direct answer on what exactly they would do. She didn't say no. Yeah, she didn't say no, exactly. And look, there were some conversations about who he would actually go to when it came to a wealthy donor, because Donald Trump wants one thing, to not be embarrassed. He doesn't want to go sit in front of somebody and beg for money. So how exactly would that have come about? So the conversations that were being had at a high level were, is somebody going to go on his behalf and say, will you put up this money? How is this going to look? The people who know him and who've worked with him before say Donald Trump himself doesn't want to be the one to ever ask for the money. It's embarrassing to him. So these conversations were happening as to how exactly this would come to be if it came from a wealthy donor. And again, as you said, the morning has come and gone. We have been given no indication that he is pulling a rabbit out of his hat. And what you're starting to see now is online, you're seeing all of these conservative personalities saying, in part what you said, which is this is going to help him politically, but also just how unfair this is, that no one could have come up with this money. Even Eric Trump posting that it was impossible to meet this cash limit, or this bond. So that gives you some idea that doesn't seem likely at this point that some kind of magic is happening.
But even if it helps him politically, I mean, personally, and for his own mindset, you can just see how much this bothers him. I mean, looking at his Truth Social, anytime last week, he was posting about it at 2 o'clock in the morning, multiple times within an hour period. And today, what he was saying is that essentially his concern, and that he's making very obvious, because he often just says what's on his mind, is that if he could have to sell his assets for a lower price on a quick basis, and then use that money to try to put this up. And then, of course, he argues if he wins the appeal, then he would have sold them for no reason. It's not clear, though, that, of course, he would win the appeal here.
Exactly. Now, his lawyers have said that he shouldn't have to sell properties, because that is one option on the table. Do a fire sale, unload some of your assets, and then you're more liquid in cash. His lawyers have insisted that he shouldn't have to do that. That's part of why they've appealed.
But would a regular person have to just do that?
We are so far outside the realm of regular people. I mean, we're talking about buildings, worth very large amounts of money, which, of course, how much they are worth was at the center of the civil fraud trial, right? We are so outside the bounds of what normal people would have to do. But for him, his lawyers argue that he shouldn't have to sell off these buildings. Now, they also argue that that's where a lot of his wealth is tied up. But again, this goes to his identity. This is embarrassing. He has put himself forth as a billionaire, successful businessman for decades. So this strikes at the heart of his identity, who he has always purported to be. Not only this case, which was incredibly personal, saw several of his children testify, the decision by the judge, but now the idea that not only he's not going to do a fire sale, we don't expect that, but that some of these assets could be seized, incredibly embarrassing, if it could potentially, though, be politically beneficial.
Yeah, or his bank accounts frozen.
Yes.
And Sarah and John, I mean, that's really what's at the heart of what we're watching this morning. It's a lot going on, understandably, even by Trump standards. It's a pretty crazy day. But what we're seeing here is really timing, because it's the timing of what's going to happen here with this criminal hush money case. Is it going to happen in April? What does the judge decide? But the clock running out on this bond issue is what is consuming Trump much more than that. Though both of them are important, both are two issues that his legal team and the former president himself are coming face to face with at this moment.
Yeah, the bond issue is very, very expensive, and he could feel it very soon. All right, Caitlin. And as we said, Donald Trump has just arrived at the courthouse. We are expecting to hear from him, we think, soon. And we were talking to our lawyers a little while ago. What he says here outside the criminal court could have a bearing on the whole financial situation he's in now, because he has tweeted before. He said, I have all the money. I have all the money I need. Well, if he keeps on saying that, an appeals judge isn't going to say, you know what, you don't have to pay as much to cover this bond.
Or pay less, which they're asking for both things. So if he says he has the money and the court see that, they may decide, well, go ahead and pay it then. We will see what happens with that. We will see what happens with the AG and whether she puts into place mechanisms to try to freeze his bank accounts or seize his property. With us now is CNN's senior political commentator and former Obama administration official, Van Jones, and Republican strategist, Rena Shaw. Thank you both for being here. When you look at sorry, but it's a circus. When you look, this is not normal for when somebody comes to court. When you look at what's happening outside of court and you look at the tirade that Donald Trump went on over the weekend, talking about all these different things, going after the judge and saying he has the money, what does this tell you about how much he cares about this potential criminal case, the first that could go forward, and this case that really has to do just with his money? I will start with you, Van Jones.
Well, look, this is a big deal for him, and because now all of the vices are starting to come together. If you want to think about this from a big picture point of view, Donald Trump is the bull, and the legal system is the matador. He wants to run over American society back into the White House. He's got to get past the matador, and every single opening and vulnerability in his character is being poked at by the legal system. He's disrespectful toward women. The defamation case comes in. He's loose with the rules when it comes to documents. Okay, you got the Florida case coming in. You've got, his, frankly, business swindler, for lack of a better term, affect. That's coming into case. Every single aspect of his personality that makes him unfit for office and anybody else would be in jail or broke is now coming down on him. And he's got to face them all at the same time. And so from his point of view, I'm sure it's a nightmare, but it's a nightmare of his own making. He's the person that wants to go back into the White House. He's the person that wants to flout all these rules. Well, the system has rules and ways to enforce those rules, and they're all being enforced now at the same time. And you can see him freaking out on Truth Social all night. This is a big, big day for him.
You really can see him sort of ranting in real time about this, and you can see how much it's under his skin. And Rena, just this morning he wrote, he's being forced to sell his babies. And by that we think he doesn't mean Eric or Don Jr. We think he's talking about his buildings there, Rena. But it does show you what he cares about most.
Well, I think when you pull back and look at this entire thing, I'm reminded by the Marcus Aurelius quote, the impediment to action then becomes the action. So this is the messaging strategy we have seen Trump and his family employ, frankly, that he's not just being kneecapped here by this historic judgment, supposedly. He is being crippled to the point where he is being denied what is fairly his. And so you can't look at elected Republicans for some kind of support at this point, because they've taken the road of, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So everywhere you're looking on the Republican side, there is this cry of Donald Trump is the victim of a system that is unfair, that has these undefined norms, and it's lawfare at its worst. And this is just something the Democrats have to push back on. Frankly, the ball is in their court to come out and say, well, if you're a billionaire, then you should have the money, and you should, with a blink of an eye, this should not be a problem for you. You should be presenting what you need to do to the court to show that you're an innocent man who follows the rules. And now, if that's going to work on these undecided voters, who knows? But here we sit in this moment where, frankly, the very thing that's at stake here is this perceived success that Trump has really benefited from all these years. Whether you like it or not, our system is one that says economic power is political power. And if Trump cannot pay this up, this bond, then we see it is starting to be turned on its head after today.
Van Jones, in speaking to that, and politically speaking, when you look at the money, and he's always put himself out there as, the man who could make the deal. Politically, when he can't pay this money, he's also using it to fundraise. It doesn't seem to be hurting him in the polls. I mean, what say you about this dichotomy here, where, Democrats might want to take advantage of this situation, but it doesn't seem to be hurting him?
Well, we just have two different universes in the Democratic Party universe. Someone this unfit for office, someone who's broken this many rules, somebody who's this afoul of the law, probably shouldn't be an intern at the White House, let alone be president. And that's the case the Democrats are prosecuting. But you go through mirror world. Someone who the system hates this much, that she's trying to stop him no matter what. He must be good. Everyone's against him. He must be for us. And so he's been able to flip this whole thing to present himself as a martyr, which is why he shows up at court even when you don't have to. I'm going to tell you right now, I've never had a client or anybody who wanted to go to court when they didn't have to go to court. Donald Trump wants to be there because he believes that by presenting himself as a martyr for his own cause, that it actually strengthens him. And so far, it looks like it's working. And so you literally have two different movies happening at the same time with the same characters. In one movie, whenever you see Donald Trump, it's a scary movie like a horror show. Another movie, when you see Donald Trump, it's a heroic movie, like he's a Superman for the right. So this is what we're dealing with, and we will always be strangers to each other and baffled by each other because it's hard for either side to understand why the other is feeling the way that we're feeling.
And we just want to be clear, we've been watching this and you've been seeing it on the screen there. We're watching the door literally where Donald Trump is going to walk through. The expectation is he often does speak. Sometimes he does it, halfway through. Sometimes he comes out of court, but he usually does say something. And now you see some movement there. We are waiting to see him come into court and see if he says anything about either of the legal things he is facing today. Van Jones and Rena Shaw, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. And as I was just talking about, former President Donald Trump is now at court. The question is, will we hear from him? Will he speak?
two things a young man want to be: cowboy or a gangster. And a gangster is out of style. I got back to my roots. We come from a long line of cowboys. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my aunt even rode horses. When I see all of us out here on this ranch, I see how far our legacy can go.
When you can't take your bed to the store, there's Instacart.
We got another bed in the south door.
It's time to feed the dogs real food, not highly processed pellets. The farmer's dog is fresh food made with whole meat and veggies. It's not dry food. It's not wet food. It's just real food. It's an idea whose time has come.
Bleeding gums are serious, Jamie.
Dr. Garcia?
Whoa! You're a sign of bacterial infection.
Press Gum Detoxify's antibacterial fluoride works below the gum line to help heal gums and stop bleeding.
Press saves the day.
Press.
Was that necessary?
No. Neither is missing your daughter's competition to do payroll. With Paycom, employees do their own payroll, so you don't have to miss your daughter's big day. Time to shine. Get Paycom and make the unnecessary unnecessary.
With Chewy, it's never been easier to get their favorite toy delivered. Again.
Come on, let go.
And again. And again.
Good luck.
Get whatever they love delivered right on time. Save 35% on your first auto ship order with Chewy.
It's the most hosted show in late night. Put up your nukes! And they're back.
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Doing what they do best.
Every news outlet has different standards.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show is all new tonight at 11 on Comedy Central.
Y'all, Wayfair makes it so easy to create a home you'll love. It's the talk of the neighborhood.
Kelly, I just Wayfared.
That's Wayfair, saving time, saving money. You Wayfared your whole bathroom?
Even the vanity. When I Wayfair, I Wayfair.
You know?
Oh, I know. This is nice.
Another Wayfair day.
You know it. New couch in just 2 days.
The Wayfair word is out. Wayfair, you've got just what I need. I've always wanted to do that.
The Omaha Steaks semi-annual sale is back. Right now, you'll save 50% site-wide on America's best steaks, chicken, burgers, and so much more. All backed by our 100% guarantee that you'll love every bite. And for a limited time, when you go to omahasteaks.com/TV, you'll get 12 Omaha Steaks burgers free with your order. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV today and save big on the quality you deserve.
As the Earth issues a distress call in the face of a pending climate crisis, Abu Dhabi is advancing its agenda for a greener future. With an ideal climate to support some of the world's largest solar projects and a grid that's almost completely powered by clean energy. It's a city that nurtures sustainable innovation, developing solutions in carbon capture, sustainable transportation, and coastal regeneration. Abu Dhabi is helping fast forward the UAE's sustainable mission.
I'm Evan Perez at the federal court in Washington, and this is CNN.
You are looking live at pictures of a courthouse here in Manhattan where Donald Trump is expected to walk through those doors at any moment now as he's going to enter the courtroom for a hearing on the hush money case here and the concern over the timing of that after new documents were turned over to his defense and they pushed for at least a 90-day delay and also an outright dismissal of this case, something that the district attorney here in Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, agreed to at least a 30-day delay in that trial that was supposed to get underway today and would have been historic because it would have been the first criminal trial of a former president that we have ever seen. So right now we are waiting to find out what the timing of this trial could look like, something we can learn from inside that room there today. But the other timing that is also a factor here, and one that is much more consuming for the former president, is that it is the end of that 30-day grace period that was granted to him by the Attorney General here in New York. That's Letitia James, who brought that civil fraud trial against Trump, and now he owes at least $450 million in interest, about $100,000 that is added to that every single day. He had been working to try to appeal that, but he needed to put up that money, and so far has been unable to do so. So that is something that he has been posting about all morning instead of the actual case that is going to be happening there inside the courtroom. We are waiting to see the former president as he walks through those doors, but we do believe he may speak to cameras before entering that courtroom. We are continuing to monitor all of this. As soon as he does speak, we will bring those comments and potentially a fact check if needed here live to you as we are waiting to hear from Donald Trump, his legal team in the courtroom. Much more. Stay with us after a quick break.
Important healthcare announcement. If people tell you your TV is too loud, or if listening in some environments has become too difficult, we are requesting your participation in a special program called the 30-Day Risk-Free Challenge. Hearing Life Hearing Centers are seeking people with hearing difficulties to evaluate a new 100% digital mini hearing aid now being released. All people with hearing aids or hearing difficulties are wanted to take part in this 30-day risk-free challenge evaluating this new high-tech device that sits discreetly behind your ear. This hearing aid is Bluetooth enabled and rechargeable. All hearing assessments are performed at no charge for those taking part in the challenge. Participants will try these hearing aids for 30 days. Now, to take part in this event, you must call. So please get a pencil and write down the number below. Call us and take the Hearing Life 30-Day Risk-Free Challenge.
It's the most hosted show in late night.
Put up your nukes!
And they're back.
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Doing what they do best.
Every news outlet has different standards.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show is all new tonight at 11 on Comedy Central.
I still can't believe she's gone. These past few days has been a whirlwind.
There's so much to arrange. I just wasn't prepared.
No, but your mother was.
Yeah, good thing you and Mom got those policies. I had no idea how expensive all this would be.
I know. I didn't want to talk about it, but I'm glad she made us do it.
And the payment is on the way already. It really was as fast as they said.
Your mother always made sure we were prepared.
I can't believe you both were able to qualify with your health issues.
That's why we chose United of Omaha Life Insurance Company. There were no health questions, there were no medical exams, and our acceptance was guaranteed.
Help your family prepare for the financial burden when your time comes. If you are between 45 and 85, you automatically qualify for up to $25,000 in life insurance coverage with United of Omaha. Policies start at just $6.38 a month, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down for any health reason. There are no medical exams and no health questions. Plus, benefits can be paid within 24 hours, and unlike some policies, are payable from day one.
I didn't think you would be able to get a life insurance policy on your fixed income.
With United of Omaha, policies start at just $6.38 a month. And with the rate lock guarantee, my rate is locked in for life.
A funeral could cost more than $9,000, and prices rise each year. Have you helped prepare your family to pay for these expenses when you're gone? With one call and as little as 5 minutes, you can qualify for up to $25,000 in life insurance coverage.
Just like your mom, taking care of us even after she's gone.
Help take care of your loved ones after you're gone with a guaranteed acceptance life insurance policy from United of Omaha today.
Call 800-615-9611. That's 800-615-9611. 800-615-9611. Call today.
Welcome to the team, Rob Gronkowski. Can you help us make a commercial? I thought you never asked.
BuiltBasics.com.
Ready for anything.
Still training hard every day. Gotta keep up with the competition.
Working a regular day job now. I've got to keep up with my office attire.
Still the sexiest tight end to ever do it. Date night ready, Rob.
BuiltBasics.com for the best apparel in the game.
Jerry goes off-grid almost every weekend, but now, a Friday last-minute meeting? Otter has Jerry covered with an AI meeting assistant to take notes and capture action items, so Jerry can go camping and be ready for Monday. Sign up for free. Visit otter.ai or download the app.
Take control of your health by boosting your force field, the immune system. Aura tells you when your temperature is higher than normal. Live smarter, stronger, healthier with the Aura Ring.
I'm Pete Mundine at Reagan National Airport. This is CNN.
Right now, Donald Trump is in a New York court for a hearing in the hush money case against him. We could hear from him before that hearing begins. Back with us now, former Manhattan prosecutor Jeremy Saland and CNN legal analyst Jennifer Rogers. All right, Jennifer, when you look at this particular case, what is expected to happen today? When he walks into court with his attorneys, what's going to happen?
So Judge Marchand has said he wants an explanation for why these documents that Trump subpoenaed from SDNY weren't turned over when he got discovery from the DA's office last year. He asked for a timeline of exactly what happened. So I expect he'll take the prosecutors through their paces. Tell me exactly what happened. Why didn't you get these documents before? And he'll want to be satisfied about that before he's willing to turn the page and say, okay, they have what they have now. Let's set a trial date.
So if a trial date is set, and it is, I keep one eye, by the way, on the goings-on outside the courthouse. But, Jeremy, if a trial date is set for April 15th, that means jury selection begins there.
Correct.
What's it going to be like getting a jury for this case?
So they bring in a panel of people, and they'll fill that courtroom, even potentially the seats of people that normally would watch and sit in the benches. They'll fill that up. And then the judge is going to allow the defense attorney and the prosecution to ask their questions. And the prosecution is going to try to find the right candidate to sit on that jury who's not going to be biased, who's going to be able to follow the law, but more so for the defense, because there are a few people here in New York who don't have opinion either way, right? Because he's a known commodity, good or bad. This story, his presidency, his involvement in the state of New York and the city of New York is, for lack of a better term, kind of epic. So they really need to make sure they're not going to have someone there who is, we'll call it maybe a plant who is too far to the left, is not going to give Donald a fair trial. So I think that's really going to be key here, is the credibility of those jurors, that they will be fair and honest and listening to the evidence.
I do want to ask you about witnesses in this case. One of the most important, but one of the most troubling, is Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former attorney, who had quite a bit of inside knowledge as to how all this happened. He was the one that the money was paid through to get to Stormy Daniels, according to prosecutors. But he has a real problematic history. Tell us why the Trump team, first of all, tried to keep him off the stand, and then they're going to go after him, I'm sure.
Yeah, so Team Trump has been trying for months to keep him off the stand, saying he's a liar. He pled guilty, actually, to making false statements to Congress, so he can't be trusted. He shouldn't be allowed to testify. And Judge Marchand has said, no, he will be allowed to testify, but you can, of course, bring all of these things in cross-examination. This is just a monster of a witness in cross-examination. He is central to the allegations here, so prosecutors need to use him, but they have him corroborated by documents and by other witnesses. The issue is going to be cross. There is so much material here because he has lied before, because he's pleaded guilty to a whole variety of offenses. They're going to use all of that. Conventional wisdom with cross is try to keep it tight, pick maybe 3 things and go after those 3 things. But here, there's so much material, you can see them just taking days and days and days beating up Michael Cohen with all of the stuff that they have.
So if you're the prosecution, you know that, Jeremy. So how do you stop the bleeding with a person who is one of your key witnesses?
And one of the ways you take the wind out of that sails is you have that witness admit up front and come out front and say, this is what I did, and this is why I did it, and you cannot run away from it. So Michael Cohen is going to have to say, I lied. I was I was convicted of a particular crime. This is why I did what I did. If he runs away and they don't address it, it's going to seem like he's hiding. And there's really not much more to hide, because he's been exposed. And a federal court judge just recently acknowledged and recognized that either he lied before in Goron when he said, he was not, he didn't tell the truth in federal court when he took a plea, or he lied in federal court when he took that plea. So there's really ripe areas for cross.
Donald Trump's attorneys are asking for this case to be thrown out or delayed. The chances of that, do you think we'll have a date for when this trial starts going forward today?
I think we will. The only reason that we won't is if the judge isn't satisfied with what prosecutors tell him. If he still thinks after their explanations that something fishy was going on, then he might not set a date. But I think based on what's come out about the content of the documents that were turned over, apparently there's only a small amount of documents that they didn't already have. They're not particularly exciting or exculpatory. So I think the judge will accept prosecutors' statements and pick a date.
All right, there is Donald Trump. Let's listen in.
Thank you very much, everybody. You getting a podcast? This is a witch hunt. It's a hoax. Thank you.
So it was very short.
He did not have much to say.
No, he just said it's a witch hunt, which he said over and over and over again on his Truth Social. That was probably the shortest amount of time we've seen him speak when he comes into court or when he is in court. What did you make of that?
I think that could be on the heels of his Truth Social post about having the money to cover the bond. You know, his attorneys, proverbially are wringing his neck and holding him back, saying, do not say things that are going to hurt you. And that may be a product of it.
Jennifer Rogers, Jeremy Saland, thank you both so much. Just got a tiny snippet there. We heard from Donald Trump. It was very short and very pointed.
Yeah, $500 million might make you quiet. Yep. Thank you all for being with us. This has been CNN News Central. CNN Newsroom with Jim Acosta picks up right now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Good morning and welcome to our special coverage. I'm Jim Acosta in Washington alongside Caitlin Collins in New York. And moments ago, former President Donald Trump arrived at a lower Manhattan courthouse. This morning, he's facing double legal trouble, the prospect of a criminal trial and the possibility that some of his prized commercial properties could be seized by authorities in New York. Today, for the first time in American history, we could learn when an ex-president goes on criminal trial. You can see him right there arriving at the courthouse. The judge overseeing his hush money case is expected to set a court date after Trump allegedly bribed a porn star to cover up their affair. Also this morning, his carefully cultivated image of an American business tycoon is also at risk. Trump's real estate assets, including his, quote, babies, as he calls them, could be seized if he can't make a nearly $500 million bond payment in his civil fraud case. But first, our coverage begins with the hush money hearing. CNN's Caitlin Collins is live in New York outside the courthouse. Caitlin, we just saw the former president arrive a few moments ago, and it sounds like he had a couple of choice words. Words we've heard many times, but choice words.
Yeah, calling it a witch hunt, calling it a hoax, something that we have heard from him for months, if not going on a year now, ever since he was indicted in this case. He had been outside the courthouse here for quite some time, but just now got out of his motorcade and entered the courtroom. I should note his attorneys, who you saw there with him, had already been inside the courtroom, Todd Blanche and Susan Nicholas. They had exited the courtroom and they went back inside, as you can see alongside him. The district attorney here, Alvin Bragg, had already been inside the room when Trump entered. I should note, as all of this is going on, it's all about timing here and the question of when this case is going to happen and when Donald Trump will become the first former president to actually go and face a criminal trial. It was expected to start today, but it was delayed in recent days after new documents, hundreds of thousands of them, were turned over to Trump's legal team, something they are claiming they need more time to sort through because they believe it could be exculpatory for the former president. We heard pushback from Alvin Bragg's office on that, agreeing to at least a 30-day delay. But really, all of this is going to be up to the judge and what the judge inside that courtroom determines. CNN's Paula Reed and Kristen Holmes are both here outside this Manhattan courthouse. And Paula, I think it's important to remind people, because we've been, talking about all the different judges here. Yeah. This judge has been maybe the first that we've really seen who has been very aggressive, in addition to Judge Chutkan in Washington, when it comes to the timing here and cutting Trump's team off when they've tried these delay tactics, which we know has been their strategy in every single case. This judge has been very strict. I wonder what that portends for what the judge will do today.
So it's interesting because Trump's team is asking for 90 days if the case is not dismissed. We don't expect it's going to be dismissed. So they're asking for 90 days to review this new evidence that was handed over by federal prosecutors. But the district attorney is saying, no, he's delayed this 30 days until April 15th. That's enough time. We can start then. Only a small portion of this evidence is actually relevant. So now it's up to the judge how long you delay this case. Do you say, all right, we're going to go forward on April 15th? Do you try to split the difference? Do you 45 days? We'll be watching. But as you said, Judge Juan Merchan, he has been pretty aggressive trying to keep this case on pace. But I mean, the Trump team has successfully delayed it. This was supposed to be the first day of trial. Instead, the Trump lawyers are going to be in there arguing for postponement or possibly even dismissal.
And of all the cases that he's facing, Kristen, obviously this one, his team says, at least publicly, that they are the least worried about what it means for him as far as the legal danger that he's in. But certainly, personally, it's been one of the most difficult cases for him because it's, kind of revived one of the most sensitive issues that we were dealing with his first year in the White House, which was, of course, paying Stormy Daniels the hush money to cover up the story of their affair, their alleged affair, before the election, something that was affected his relationship with the First Lady that she was angry about, and now here is still at the heart of what he is potentially going to be on trial for the first time, and maybe the only time before the election.
Yeah, it's tawdry, it's embarrassing, it's definitely not something that they want paraded around. Melania Trump, the former First Lady, obviously does not want to relive any of that. But I do want to point out what we just saw from Donald Trump, which is very different from what we've seen in a lot of these other cases and trials and hearings, which is just a very brief moment at the cameras. And likely that is because he is not paying that close of attention to this hearing today. He is fixated on that bond money. And as you noted, he was sitting in his car for quite some time before coming in. He was posting on Truth Social over and over again, actually just seconds before he walked through those doors, about that bond, saying it was ridiculous that he would have to pay this quote-unquote made-up amount, talking about one of the things he's most sensitive about in that New York civil fraud trial, which is the value of Mar-a-Lago, constantly talking about the idea that it was definitely not worth $18 million, but more than that. That is at the heart of what Donald Trump is focused on right now. So I think it's very telling, instead of seeing him come out and talk about this trial, seeing him post about this trial, or about this hearing, instead you're hearing him still talk about not meeting that bond and that bond money.
And it's also remarkable, just as, we covered Donald Trump when he was in the White House, and to see this moment culminate here today, where it's the New York Attorney General that today could start enforcing that order from the judge. We don't expect that she's going to be, seizing Trump Tower or Mar-a-Lago any moment now, but she certainly could freeze his bank accounts. She could start to move to seize those assets. And also he's inside this courtroom, being indicted after having been indicted by the Manhattan District Attorney. I think it speaks to the whole story of what's at stake here and the biggest threats that are being posed to him in the place that he called home, where he built his wealth, which was now, is at real risk today.
Yeah, it's fascinating because this case combines the personal, the legal, and the political. At the heart of this case, right, is an alleged affair, efforts to cover up, paying back Michael Cohen, who of course turned on him. I do want to give a couple details that we have from inside the court, because right now there are no cameras inside the courtroom, but we do have our colleagues in there who are giving us some updates. And to Kristen's point, I mean, this really does seem like Trump is not very happy to be there. They say he's seated behind his defense attorneys. He's hunched over. He does not look very happy. He's sitting at the defense table in between his two attorneys, and they're waiting for this to get underway. But yeah, he definitely seems like he is feeling the gravity of this moment, potentially the first criminal prosecution that he will face here, the Manhattan District Attorney, and the possibility of having some of his most treasured assets seized by the New York Attorney General. Even by Trump standards, this is an incredibly significant day for him.
Yeah, and Jim, it all comes back to timing here. The question of what the timing is going to be in this case, when he's going to be on trial, but also what he is going to do now that the clock has run out to put up that $500 million bond. And as of right now, we have not heard any update from his legal team that he has found any kind of an 11th hour solution to this.
Yeah, the delay tactics have worked on a variety of fronts. Might not work in that particular matter, but we'll continue this conversation. Caitlin, thank you very much. Join me now as we continue our coverage. CNN Chief Legal Analyst Laura Coates, CNN Chief Domestic Correspondent Phil Mattingly, and CNN Senior Legal Analyst and former federal prosecutor Ellie Honig. Laura, we were talking about the bond payment that's come due just a few moments ago, but this hush money trial, it was scheduled to start today, but was delayed when prosecutors turned over, 100,000 pages of new documents. Do we know anything about those documents? And we were saying earlier, it sounds as though we're going to get a trial date set, perhaps today, in this hush money case. What does that mean?
I mean, the irony, because everyone criticized the Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg for having the audacity to go first, they kept saying. He leapfrogged, of course, the special counsel, and they wondered why he'd want to do that. Now it turns out he might be the only trial to actually go before the general election after all is said and done. It's an important case, although it's very backward-looking in terms of the 2016 and the hush money payments case. The documents at issue are very important, though, because they're going to claim on the Trump side that you have violated discovery rules. I was supposed to have these a long time ago. Is there some reason you didn't give them to me before? You know there's a trial date set. Why don't I have them? But what's in them is going to be very important. Is it something that's going to be inculpatory or exculpatory, meaning it'll show some innocence on the part of Trump or otherwise? They're going to argue in court today. They need much more time to go through everything, although most law firm associates will tell you $100,000 documents. Okay, it's over the weekend. Thank you very much. Yeah. Having been an associate myself, it was over the weekend. Thank you very much. But at the end of the day, they're going to try to say that you withheld documents because your case is either bad or you didn't want me to see something. If that persuades the judge, that could be very consequential.
Yeah, Ellie, I mean, Trump has played this delay game pretty masterfully this entire saga that we've seen on a variety of fronts for Donald Trump. But in this case, I mean, it does seem as though time is running out. As Laura was saying a few moments ago, it looks like this will be the one trial that will happen before the election. And, folks might say, oh, well, this one's not as consequential as the others. It is rather sordid. It is rather unseemly. This doesn't feel like a big political or legal win for Donald Trump. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a criminal trial of a former president and current presidential candidate. It is a big deal no matter how you slice it. And you are right. Of course, Donald Trump's strategy is to delay. That's what any reasonable defendant or defense lawyer would be doing in this situation. There have been prosecutorial missteps, as Laura was just talking about. These documents, it's important that people understand. In a criminal case, a prosecutor has an affirmative obligation to turn over materials that would be helpful to the defense. It's actually the only area of law where a lawyer has to turn over stuff that's good for the other side. And prosecutors are paranoid about this. If I got anything that was good for the defense, I would shoot it out as soon as possible because you don't want exactly this situation. And what's happened here is just about a month ago, Trump's team started getting 100,000 documents that very likely, and according to the reporting and according to the briefs, relate to Michael Cohen. So we have to remember, the reason the feds, my former office, declined to prosecute Donald Trump, big reason is they didn't trust Michael Cohen. And these documents are the Fed's papers on Michael Cohen. So what's going to happen today is Trump's team's going to say, this changes everything. This completely blows up Michael Cohen. We need to push his case off forever. And the DA is going to say it was inadvertent and these documents are really no big deal and we're ready to go in April.
We got to unpack it a little bit more. You know as well as everyone else, the SDNY are the feds. You've got the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg. There is a disconnect between who actually had the documents and then who has to turn them over. And I know we talk about the Sovereign District of New York, from which you're an alum, otherwise SDNY, but that's part of the tension here for Alvin Bragg going into court, right? That he has to say, look, Your Honor, I'm with you on my obligation. It was their fault, not mine. Do not punish my trial.
And there's something to that. I mean, the briefing that we've seen so far, the DA was saying to the feds, by the way, the office where not only I used to work, but Alvin Bragg used to work, and Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's lawyer, all used to work. But the DA was begging the feds, hey, we need this stuff. And so I think there's going to be a lot of finger pointing at the Southern District.
Ellie, you've worked with everybody in New York. We'll just put that disclosure blanket.
And also there's always finger pointing at SDNY. And SDNY, A, loves that, and B, doesn't care all at the same exact time.
But Phil, Trump, I mean, we just saw him come out a few moments ago. He said it was a witch hunt. He said the usual things that he says. And his base usually goes along with it. But as Ellie and I were discussing before we got started here, there could be a political price to pay for Donald Trump. The political bill may come due. If there's a conviction in this hush money case, we've seen poll after poll show there is a percentage of independents out there who will say, you know what, a convicted felon, somebody who's been convicted in court like this, I can't vote for that guy.
I think what's so striking about this day, both in this and in the effort to secure a bond, which, as Caitlin was noting, they've gone totally radio silent whether or not they're going to be able to do that. But up to this point, his lawyers have made very clear they can't, is the kind of courthouse campaign strategy has undeniably been effective up to this point. It was this case, when it was brought by Alvin Bragg, that started his total political turnaround, raised a ton of money in the Republican primary. All of a sudden, he started shooting up. Ron DeSantis would point to that day almost a year ago where he said, that's when everything changed for us. It's effective in the sense that nothing has actually happened yet to him. If a court date is set today, if Letitia James starts moving to seize his assets, to freeze his bank accounts, to go after his properties, things start happening. I was talking to a House Republican on Friday who said, what's strange, very big Trump supporter, talks to the Trump team, says, this feels different because something's actually happening to him. We thought the dilatory tactics would last forever. Whether or not that has a political repercussion to it, I don't think anybody really knows. Clearly, their tactics have worked quite well up to this point in a primary with Republicans. Now he's in a general election. What does it do to money? What does it do to polling? But also, what does it do to him? We've seen his reaction. We've seen how he operates, not just on social media, but when he speaks publicly later today, does that turn more people off? Yeah. We're talking about a slice of about 160,000 people that are likely to decide this election. Yeah. Where are they when things actually start, when there are repercussions, when tangible things are happening to them? We're about to find out in the coming years.
Yeah, we've seen how the collective weight of all of this is affecting him. We don't know what it looks like when it all comes crashing down. Yeah. That's what we haven't seen. All right, Laura, Phil, Ellie, stay with me. When we come back, what happens if Donald Trump misses today's deadline to secure that $464 million bond in his civil fraud case? We'll tell you which properties and assets the New York Attorney General could go after. Our special coverage continues next.
Aaron Burnett out front tonight at 7 on CNN.
Life, diabetes, there's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna, bring on the day.
If you lived or worked at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for at least 30 days from August 1953 through December 1987 and have been diagnosed with cancer, neurobehavioral effects, fertility issues, or more, you may qualify for financial compensation. A new law passed by Congress now allows veterans and survivors to seek damages for harm from exposure to contaminated water at Camp Lejeune. Call Saddle Rock Legal Group to discuss your case now.
Call 1-800-814-9977.
Hello, Mia. Are you ready to meet your demise?
Man, we really need to upgrade your trash talk.
Nice shot. Take her.
Who programmed you? I'll see you tomorrow.
The future isn't scary. Not investing in it is. 100 innovative companies, one ETF. Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in prospectus at Invesco.com.
It's the most hosted show in late night.
Put up your nukes!
And they're back.
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Doing what they do best.
Every news outlet has different standards.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show is all new tonight at 11 on Comedy Central.
Stay tuned to learn more about this limited time offer from Renewal by Andersen.
Have you been looking at replacing your home's windows or doors? If so, I'm sure price is a huge factor. At Renewal by Andersen, we're really proud of our fair pricing policy.
We're a typical middle-class family. We have a budget. We need to be aware of where our money's going. And the great thing about Renewal by Andersen was they actually had several financing options that were going to make sense for our situation.
So, let's talk windows. Our Fibrex window material is like the gold standard in the industry. It's a composite material that lasts longer, performs better, and is actually 2 times stronger than vinyl. Okay, so you're carrying this out to your back deck, but you gotta stop and try to shove open that patio door. That can be real frustrating. The dual ball bearing adjusters on our patio doors help the doors to glide easily. At Renewal by Andersen, we've been doing this a long time, and we know that you don't want some hard sell sales pitch. We'll visit your home, see exactly what you have, and then give you an exact price quote. And we'll honor that price for a whole year so that there's no pressure. Let us give you a price on the windows and doors that you will love.
We had the intention of looking at different companies, doing some due diligence, and we started with Renewal by Andersen, and it was such a compelling conversation and process that we ended up not even looking any further.
It's Renewal by Andersen's 31-day sales event. Before March 31st, save $377 on every window and save $777 on every patio door and entry door with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 12 months. Our 31-day sales event ends March 31st. For a free appointment during our sale, call 1-800-501-1400. That's 1-800-501-1400.
Dangerous ladders, gutter muck? Ugh, no wonder you hate cleaning your gutters. Good thing there's leaf filter. Our patented filter technology keeps leaves and debris out of your gutters forever. Guaranteed. Call 833-LEAF Filter to get started and get the permanent gutter solution that ends clogs for good.
They took the time to answer all of our questions. They really put us at ease.
End clogged gutters for good. Call 833-LEAF Filter or visit leaffilter.com today.
Sanity needs a safe space.
You have a show where right and left talk to each other.
CNN presents an encore presentation of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, Saturday at 8 on CNN.
And you are looking now at pictures of Donald Trump inside the courtroom here in Manhattan. There are no cameras inside that room, but photographers were allowed briefly. As you can see, Donald Trump is seated at the defendant's table alongside his legal team on the day that was supposed to be the first day of his trial here in the criminal hush money probe, or as the Manhattan District Attorney's Office refers to it, the election interference case here leading up to what happened in the days and weeks before the 2016 election. But that trial is not beginning today, and there is now a delay after there was a late production of documents to Donald Trump's legal defense team. They're trying to get this case dismissed or at least delayed as they seek to work through this issue. And right now they are talking about this very matter with the judge in the courtroom there. And of course, as we're looking at this, what the judge is deciding right now, what he just told the courtroom, is they are trying to figure out why there was a delay in turning over so many of these documents to Trump's legal team, something that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has said lies with the SDNY, the Southern District of New York. The judge is trying to get to the bottom of this. And Jim, of course, what the judge just told the courtroom is that they're trying to figure out if any sanctions are appropriate in this case. As I noted, Trump's legal team is trying to get it dismissed, but that does not appear to be a likely outcome. Even they will privately acknowledge that. But all they care about, really, Jim, is getting at least a further delay than even that April 15th date that the judge has set so far.
All right, Caitlin, thank you very much. Very interesting. All right, as Donald Trump faces today's deadline to secure a $464 million bond in his civil fraud case, New York Attorney General Letitia James could begin the process of seizing the former president's assets if he cannot secure that bond. And while the main focus could be on his bank accounts, other assets could also be in play. Assets including houses, buildings, cars, maybe even his trademark plane. For more on all of this, Matt Egan joins me now. I mean, Matt, if you're in New York, you can't really travel too far across the city without running across a Trump property. I mean, some of these properties have been around for years and have been sort of the backbone of his brand as a successful businessman for many years. Some would question how successful he's been. But talk to us a little bit about what kind of properties we're talking about here. Might we see some padlocks? And if so, what are the dollar amounts we're talking about?
Well, Jim, it's really important to stress that nothing about this would be simple and straightforward. We are talking about a tangled web of assets controlled by a former president and the presumptive nominee. This is kind of a nightmare. But let's look at some of these specific New York real estate properties owned by the former president, starting with perhaps the most iconic Trump Tower. This is a triplex in Midtown Manhattan. Trump claimed in 2015 that this was worth $327 million. Forbes, though, values it at just $52 million. That is quite the spread and gets at one of the problems here, which is valuation. Another property that Letitia James mentions that she sees almost every single day is 40 Wall Street down in the financial district. Now, back in 2012, a bank-ordered appraisal valued this property at $220 million. However, Trump's statements later valued it at much higher levels. And then another property that's getting a lot of attention right now is Seven Springs. This is an estate and golf course in Westchester County. Forbes has valued this property at $25 million. And just last week, the New York AG's office filed some paperwork that amounted to preliminary steps before they could try to seize this property. Jim?
All right, Matt Egan, those are some big dollar amounts. Thank you very much. Joining me now to talk about this further, CNN Chief Legal Analyst Laura Coates, Ellie Honig, Phil Mattingly, all back with us. Laura, I mean, this is starting to sound like a legal form of love it or list it. I'm not sure A lot of listing could be happening. Not a lot of love for Letitia James.
Now I'm going to have to like binge watch that show.
Now you're
talking
gonna have
about
to
Hillary
binge
and
watch it,
everything that's going on there.
It's a good
Look,
show.
I mean, it is a good show. I'll admit that. When you look through everything that's happening, you're going to have Letitia James trying to come up with the sum of the parts, figuring out how to get to that very high number. But the deal is that she's not going to be the only person who says they have a stake in any of this. She'll have to get in line of other creditors. He might not own these real estate ventures right out on his own. It's not like the average person who wants to sell their home. They say, let me ask the husband, maybe the wife, maybe a grandparent, or maybe there's a trust. There are going to be a lot of people who have a stake in each of these properties. And so getting in that line will be difficult. I don't expect her to have all of a sudden like a seizure sign that's going to be on her particular property. But it does show you that she is now going to be in line as a creditor. And that's significant because she is owed a particular amount of money under this lower court ruling. And there is a bond required. As to what happens next is going to be anyone's guess in the timeline of it. But it is significant because he might not want to pay this. It might be novel, but it is now owed. And it's based on a judgment by a judge who said that these line up proportionally with what the ill-gotten gains are.
Yeah, and I mean, he can't just say, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to pay this, right? I mean, that's part of the other thing that I thought was interesting when we were looking at Matt Egan's report there, isn't this kind of what got Donald Trump in some of the trouble in the first place? You know, Trump says it's worth this, but Forbes says it's worth that.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, well, if they have to put these on the market, then I guess we'll know who was right with respect to the valuations. This is going to happen very quickly. I mean, Laura's absolutely right. The full process, especially when we get into real estate, will take months or years because there's various people who have interest. But what Letitia James can do is, I'm sure she's already identified his bank accounts, seize them, and essentially take the money out. And that can happen really quickly. Another thing that's really important to keep in mind, there is a court-approved monitor, a former federal judge, Judge Barbara Jones, who I appeared in front of many times, who's a very good judge, very sharp. She has been installed as the monitor overseeing Trump's businesses. So if the concern is, well, is there going to be games played here, Trump hiding things, moving things around? Not with Judge Jones keeping an eye on things. So she's there as sort of a safety valve for the court to make sure things go according to order.
Yeah. I think it's a fascinating point because based on my understanding,
she has been installed as the monitor overseeing Trump's businesses. So if the concern is, well, is there going to be games played here, Trump hiding things, moving things around? Not with Judge Jones keeping an eye on things. So she's there as sort of a safety valve for the court to make sure things go according to order.
Yeah. I think it's a fascinating point because based on my understanding, you make a great point about the bank accounts. Trump continuously talks about how he has cash. He has a lot of cash. Yeah. And the thing is, which is ironic given what he's in trouble for right now, is he does. When you look at his disclosure statements, when you look at the financial statements, he has a lot of cash on hand, particularly for a developer.
I have the $500 million.
He does not have the $500 million. I'm like, he does not have the $500 million. I'm like pretty cognizant or pretty sure of that fact, both based on reporting and on its disclosure forms. Yeah. But for a developer, he has a lot of cash on hand. He doesn't have enough. And to Ellie's point, that cash would be the first thing that Letitia James would likely go after because it's the easiest thing to get access to. So that thing he's been touting and talking about, maybe inflating a little bit, as Trump might do, is actually a wide open target when and if Letitia James starts to try and seize assets.
That's why his attorneys are so frustrated, I'm sure, because in court today, they're going to have to address his Truth Social postings, his social media postings, his allusion to the money that he says that he has, whether it's campaign or otherwise. They're going to have to address this because one thing he cannot do is hide behind even prospective bankruptcy. It does not attach, you're talking about judgments by a court. It does not attach for intentional crimes. The idea he'd have to try to do this would be to prove he's first insolvent. And if all of his statements suggest that he's not, then James has a much easier lift to try to get the actual liquidated assets already in the form of that cash.
Yeah, and he can't continue to play three-card Monty, at this point. The buildings are too large. They know where they are.
Right. Time is up.
Yeah,
but Trump has said that, by the way, in his argument to the appeals court. And remember, we've not yet heard from the appeals court about whether they're going to reduce the bond. I would guess if they were going to do that, they would have done it by now. But one of the points Trump makes is he goes, where am I going to go? Like, I can't take 40 Wall Street and take off to some country we don't have an extradition treaty with. But I wouldn't be counting on the appeals court. I mean, they theoretically could weigh in, but I would have expected them to have done that already. So if I'm Trump, I'm not going to keep my fingers crossed waiting for a bailout there.
All right, guys, thank you very much. Our coverage continues in just a few moments. We're getting some reporting from inside the courthouse where former President Donald Trump and his team are arguing for, surprise, a lengthy delay of his hush money trial. We'll I'll be live outside the courthouse with all of that next. Stay with us.
Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight, premieres Sunday, April 7th at 9 on CNN.
So...
Congrats, Carol. Your youngest finally popped the question. But now you're really going to have to get those new dentures. After all, you need a smile that matches the moment. So this might be a good time to mention that Aspen Dental can create natural-looking dentures in no time, just for you. And that comes with $0 down plus 0% interest, if paid in full in 18 months. Helping mothers of grooms look their best. It's one more way Aspen Dental is in your corner.
Okay, y'all, we got 10 orders coming in.
Starting a business is never easy, but starting at 8 months pregnant, that's a different story. I couldn't slow down. We were starting a business from the ground up. People were showing up left and right, and so did our business needs. The Chase Ink card made it easy. When you go for something big like this, your kids see that, and they believe they can do the same.
Earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase with the Chase Ink Business Unlimited card. Make more of what's yours.
I'm getting vaccinated in Pfizer's pneumococcal pneumonia vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I already got a pneumonia vaccine, but I'm asking about the added protection of Prevnar 20.
If you're 19 or older with certain chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Prevnar 20 is approved in adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. The most common side effects were pain and swelling at the injection site, muscle pain, fatigue, headache, and joint pain.
I want to be able to keep my plans.
I don't want to risk ending up in the hospital with pneumococcal pneumonia.
That's why I chose Prevnar 20.
Ask your doctor or pharmacist about the Pfizer vaccine for pneumococcal pneumonia.
Honestly, I was scared when I was told age-related macular degeneration could jeopardize my vision.
Great. One more thing to worry about.
It was all too hard to deal with in the beginning. But making a plan with my doctor to add PreserVision was easy.
PreserVision AREDS 2 contains the exact NEI-recommended clinically proven nutrient formula to help reduce the risk of moderate to advanced AMD progression.
Thanks to PreserVision, I feel better that I'm doing something about it, like millions of others.
PreserVision.
10,000 by next month? I don't see. Hey, we won't know unless we try, right? How long have we waited for something like this? We'll have to alert suppliers, coordinate shipments. Already alerted, already coordinated. Every supplier sees changes as they happen. Since when can we just scale up mid-cycle? Since we brought in BDO.
People who know BDO.
It's time for news about the news. Sling TV has the same news programming you love, starting at $40 a month. It's the same news programming you love, starting at $40 a month. That's what I just said. Right. It's the same news for less, starting at $40 a month.
Sling.
Welcome to the team, Rob Gronkowski.
BuiltBasics.com.
Working a regular day job now.
Still training hard every day.
Date night ready, Rob. BuiltBasics.com for the best apparel in the game.
Look, she's just sitting here building her credit by... I forgot you were here. Self gives you credit for the rent you were going to pay anyways, so you can use it to increase your credit score for free. Free credit building for renters with Self.
It's lunchtime and Gary is double booked. Good thing Gary's company uses Otter's AI meeting assistant to take notes and generate a summary. So Gary doesn't miss a meeting and can regain his lunch break. Try now for free. Visit otter.ai or download the app.
Take control of your health by boosting your force field, the immune system. Aura tells you when your temperature is higher than normal. Live smarter, stronger, healthier with the Aura Ring.
I'm Arlette Saenz at the White House, and this is CNN.
And welcome back to CNN's special live coverage. I'm Caitlin Collins here in New York, and right now, Donald Trump is inside the courthouse behind me for a hearing on the hush money case. I'm here covering it all with CNN's Paula Reed and Kristen Holmes. And Paula, we're getting live updates from what's happening inside the courtroom. We don't actually have cameras inside of there, but we can hear what's going on. And the judge is raising what I think is a pretty good question, which is Trump's legal team is complaining about when these documents were turned over and the fact that they had to seek them out, that they had to issue the subpoena to the Southern District of New York to get these documents, which is why there's a delay. And Judge Merchan is asking, well, if you issued this subpoena on January 18th, and we had a hearing here on February 15th, why didn't you bring up this issue then?
Yeah, and the response from the Trump team was that they didn't know what they were going to get because these documents came from federal prosecutors. And then it's interesting because prosecutors also weighed in here and they said, look, only a quite small number of these are actually relevant to this case. And then there was a pretty heated exchange between the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, and the judge about this question of what is relevant, because this evidence is all related to the federal investigation and prosecution of Michael Cohen. And Trump's lawyers suggested that one thing that they believed was relevant was an FBI interview related to this investigation, also interviews with special counsel Robert Mueller. And interestingly, the judge stepped in and pretty aggressively asked, well, that's not relevant. What does that interview, an interview between Michael Cohen and the former special counsel Robert Mueller, have to do with this case? He insists that investigation, the Russia investigation, has nothing to do with this case. He says to the lawyers, he said, I'm telling you, if you try to introduce something in the Mueller investigation, it's not coming in. So here, Judge Juan Merchan drawing a bright line that anything related to the Russia probe is not coming in this hush money case. But it seems like the judge is trying to get to the bottom of, okay, why did it take so long to get these documents into the hands of the prosecutors and the defense attorneys, and how much of this is really relevant? Because how much of this is relevant, that gets to how much time they need to review it. If there are thousands of relevant pages, well, that might take longer to review than just a few hundred pages. So that's why the judge really drilling in on that question right now.
And all of these documents are related to Michael Cohen himself. These are phone logs, text messages, all of these documents that have to do with this. We talked to Michael Cohen about this. He doesn't think that there's going to be anything in there that helps Donald Trump in his defense here, but his team, ultimately what they care about here is not necessarily what gets included and what doesn't, but it's how long it could potentially help delay this case,
right.
Which is what they're seeking to do.
They want every single document in these hundreds of thousands of documents, or over 100,000 documents, to be relevant, because the more documents that are relevant, the longer it will take them to go through. And essentially what you saw was the whole reason that they had a delay in the first place was because essentially the DA conceded that there was about 30 days of relevant documents in there for them to delay. So it's not surprising that you're going to see Donald Trump's team argue through each one of these documents and say, no, this is relevant. We need more time to do this, because again, the ultimate goal here is to push this as far as they possibly can. If they can get 90 days out of it, they're going to want 90 days out of it. The other part of this is how close to the election can they get this. The closer they get to the election, the more political it becomes.
So we're getting a little more from the Trump attorneys. They're pushing back on the judge, saying that nothing from the Mueller investigation can come in. For example, Todd Blanche, one of Trump's lawyers, said, look, during the Mueller interview with Michael Cohen, they talked about what Cohen was doing with Trump before Trump took office. He says that could be relevant here because the allegations are that Michael Cohen helped to facilitate this hush money payment to Stormy Daniels in the weeks leading up to the 2016 election. So Michael Cohen's job, his role in terms of his relationship with former president, then not even President Trump, that's relevant, they're saying, to their defense. I think that's a fair point, but it's unclear how exactly the judge will take that. We're getting these updates from our colleagues in the courtroom right now. Again, the judge apparently pressed Trump team to say exactly how many documents they believe are relevant. Now, the Trump team is saying thousands, but it seems like the judge wants something more specific.
They're not saying 3,000 or 4,000.
Exactly,
they're just saying thousands.
And the judge is like, all right, I need more information, just asking for a ballpark, because that's how he's going to decide how long to delay this. Okay, it looks like the Trump team just said tens of thousands. Now, the judge still not satisfied with that answer.
But they do have a point to... Michael Cohen is going to be a central witness here. This judge has recently decided Michael Cohen can testify here, something that the Trump team wanted to block, not only him, but also Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal from being able to testify. They can all testify. And if there are documents related to Michael Cohen who was being investigated that could potentially be relevant to this, that's why they want to be able to see them and introduce them here.
Yeah, exactly. And the judge is saying nothing related to the Russia probe can come in, but the Trump team is saying, hey, there are some aspects of the special counsel interview with Michael Cohen, even though it was many years ago, it was about Russian interference. There are some things that are relevant here, including what was Michael Cohen's relationship with Trump at that time, what was he doing for him, what were his other tasks, his duties, contextually and larger, picture of this case. Yeah, they have a fair point. That might be relevant, but look, it's ultimately up to the judge to decide if that is relevant.
Yeah, obviously a robust back and forth happening inside the courtroom behind us as the judge is hearing from Trump's legal team right now and also prosecutors for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office as to what the timing of this case could look like. We are monitoring these live updates. We'll take a quick break and be right back in just a moment.
Blue Carbon, a CNN film, Sunday, April 21st at 9.
The future is not just going to happen. You have to make it. And if you want a successful business, all it takes is an idea. And now becomes a future where you grew a dream into a reality. The all-new GoDaddy Aero. Put your business online in minutes with the power of AI.
You should Angie that.
Angie, what?
Angie that. It means comparing custom quotes from skilled service professionals or booking at an upfront price so you can find the best price for you. Get started today at Angie.com.
New projects means new project managers. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job, you immediately get your short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job criteria. Visit Indeed.com/hire and get started today.
My hair was thinning all around my hairline.
My dermatologist recommended Nutrafol. It's 100% drug-free and clinically tested.
My hair is longer, thicker.
Nutrafol is life-changing for me.
Get growing at Nutrafol.com.
It's payback time. All these years you've worked hard, you fixed it, you looked after it. Maybe it's time for your home to start taking care of you.
We've invested in our home, we've worked on it.
We had a whole lot of equity just sitting there.
You paid down the mortgage, invested in your home. I guess you could say your home owes you.
If you're 62 or older and own your home, learn how you can access a portion of your home equity to give you cash. A reverse mortgage can put more money in your pocket by eliminating your monthly mortgage payments, paying off higher interest credit cards, and covering medical costs.
Look, AAG can show you how a reverse mortgage loan uses your built-up home equity to give you tax-free cash for almost anything you might need.
Just eliminating the mortgage payment freed up a lot of cash for us.
I get to go and do what I want, when I want.
AAG customers talked about the counseling they got along the way, so they know how a reverse mortgage works and how their home could help pay them back when they need it the most.
I have no worries anymore.
The fact that we're still in this home means so much.
It's done everything for us that we hoped it would do for us.
Call now to receive your free no-obligation info kit. The kit shows you how to get you the cash you need using your home's equity with a reverse mortgage. Find out how your home can start taking care of you. Call 800-263-7084.
The worry every single month to make that payment was gone.
Our customers' homes are taking care of them. Maybe your home could do the same for you.
Call AAG, the country's #1 reverse mortgage lender, and get your free info kit. Call 800-263-7084. That's 800-263-7084.
It's the most hosted show in late night.
Put up your nukes!
And they're back.
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Doing what they do best.
Every news outlet has different standards.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show is all new tonight at 11 on Comedy Central.
For your most brilliant smile, Crest has you covered.
Nice smile, Brad.
Nice, thanks.
Crest 3D White, 100% more stain removal. Crest.
With the Game Time app, I paid 60% less than this guy.
What?
And it's not just sports tickets. It's also concerts. Performances, too.
Oh, come on!
Download Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Toe fungus is tough to kill, and it can spread.
It's time to start using Fungi Nail. Maximum strength Fungi Nail is so powerful it cures and prevents fungal infections. Plus, it has aloe and tea tree oil to restore skin health. Say goodbye to toe fungus with Fungi Nail.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Eucora. Help maintain a healthy urinary tract with Eucora.
I've been having UTIs for 10 years. At Eucora, we make UTI relief products. We also make proactive urinary tract health products. Eucora is a lifesaver. Try today at eucora.com.
All right, welcome back to CNN special coverage this morning. Today, former President Donald Trump's real estate empire and his reputation of extravagant wealth are at risk. His assets, including some of these prized properties on the screen right there, could be seized if he can't make a nearly $500 million bond payment by the end of the day. Joining me now, former advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, Olivia Troy, and CNN political commentator and Republican strategist Shermichael Singleton. Guys, thank you very much. Good to see you this morning. Olivia, what do you think? I mean, you've been in the room with the former president from time to time. You've seen him in these kinds of situations when he's dealing with a lot of stuff flying around. This feels different. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, look, I think no doubt he knows how real the gravity of the situation is. I also think he's very concerned about how this is perceived by his followers and the public. Certainly you know that. Yeah. I think he's trying to figure out what is the best lane for him to choose given the options. I mean, I certainly don't think that bankruptcy is on the table for him, because that would really lead to his followers being like, okay, so this is a guy who ran saying he doesn't need our money, all this other stuff, and now this guy is broke. How does that play out in the overall scheme of things? So, I think this is a damaging day for him, but this is Trump. And I think if there's an opportunity to delay, obscure, and spin, that is his expertise. And so I really am just interested to see how this plays out. Yeah, I mean, Shermichael, I mean, he walked into the courthouse this morning, and it was sort of the old, I mean, whether it's the Russia investigation, whether it's impeachment, it's the same thing. It's a witch hunt. Yeah. It's a hoax. I mean, he said the same things this morning. I guess he can't help himself. Those are the things that he says. But, the fact that some of these properties could get seized, the fact that they could go into his bank account. I mean, at some point, as we were saying earlier with the legal panel, I mean, he can't delay some of this stuff. Yeah. It can't be delayed. It's inevitable. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the only thing with more lives than a cat may be Donald Trump. I mean, this guy's luck is really phenomenal to me. I mean, it's almost mind-boggling. With that said, though, you said something, Olivia, that I think was very poignant. How do you spin this? Every moment that he has to talk about this, you're not talking about the economy, you're not talking about immigration, you're not talking about Middle Eastern policy issues, and these are all issues that he actually leads, if you are to believe some of the early polls, against President Biden. So I think the question for the Trump campaign, and more than likely what I expect to see, Jim, is that they're going to try to twist this to say, here are individuals, friends of the president, using the justice system to go after me because they can't beat me any other way. I think that's probably how they're going to spin this.
But Olivia, that isn't true. I mean, these are cases that have been brought by various authorities, whether it be at the federal government with Jack Smith down in Georgia, Fonnie Willis in New York, Letitia James and Alvin Bragg. I mean, Donald Trump's gotten himself into this jam. But at the same time, I mean, to what Shermichael was talking about a few moments ago, throughout this entire election cycle, the courthouse has been the campaign trail. Yeah. The campaign trail has been the courthouse. And he's been able to milk this to no end.
Every court appearance to me is just another Trump rally, is basically how it looks like. And he doesn't have to pay anything. So, I mean, I guess that's to, benefits him, because there's no cost to that, except for the fact that he's got all these legal ramifications to go with it. And it's the rule of law. It's the rule of law playing out because he broke the law. That's what's really happening here, right? It's not the witch hunt. It's not the attacks that he claims it to be. But you know what I think is interesting? I'm paying attention to what he does to shift the policy stances that he has on the campaign based on the highest bidder, based on which donor is going to donate the most money on a topic, and then it's going to be whatever issue they care about that becomes at the forefront. That's what we saw sort of play out with TikTok when he flipped his stance on it, right? I mean, Republicans were all about banning TikTok, and then suddenly Donald Trump's like, well, maybe, hey, let's talk about this.
Yeah, but here's the question I have, Shermichael, and he's trying to delay all of these cases, but that may work against him potentially, politically, if the hush money case is the one case that goes to trial. It's sordid. It's unseemly. Yeah. It's about an alleged affair with a porn star. He has denied that it took place. Mm-hmm. But yes, Trump has been able to use these cases to his benefit during the primary process with his base. It's solidified his base. suburban female voters outside of Philadelphia, outside of Detroit, outside of Atlanta. I mean, when we start hearing the details from the Alvin Bragg case, the hush money case, I can't imagine that's helpful.
I mean, that's the crux of this. That's difficult for me as a strategist to figure out, how do you get over this? If I'm sitting in that war room and I'm looking at groups outside of the base that we have to target, engage, and ultimately turn out for my guy, what is the message to those voters? Now, again, my point would try to pivot to some of those more kitchen table issues. But can you do that effectively if this is on the news every single day? Can you do that effectively if the candidate doesn't want to talk about
folks will be talking about the Stormy Daniels stuff around the kitchen table once we get into
it's interesting. It's salacious. And so I think the former president, it would behoove him to not focus on these things, focus on what impacts the American people today, and address what his plan is to solve those problems. And if you can't do that, if you're stuck on 2020, if you're stuck on January 6th, if you're stuck on these cases, you're likely not going to win in November, Jim, because voters don't want to hear that.
They want to hear about tomorrow, not yesterday.
Absolutely.
And to that point, let's talk about Ronna McDaniel's interview, the former RNC chair. She was on NBC this weekend. And after years of sowing doubts about the 2020 election and trying to overturn the election results, she was a part of that process, and she seemed to shift her tune yesterday. Let's listen to this. Talk about the other side.
Ultimately, he won the election.
Pardon?
But ultimately, he won the election, but there were lots of problems with the 2020 election. 100%.
And that's fair.
But I don't think he won it fair.
Did Joe Biden win the election fair and square?
He won. He's the legitimate
Did he win
president.
fair and square?
Fair and square, he won. It's certified. It's done.
Wow. I mean, not to get into all the stuff of what's happening at NBC and hiring Ronna McDaniel, just that I mean, just total 180, 360, I don't know what that is, double backflip.
It was something.
On her part.
Yeah.
Didn't exactly stick the landing.
Not quite.
Yeah.
I also just kind of was struck by, she just didn't seem remorseful at all. The sincerity there of understanding her actions and the implications and the impact of those actions didn't really come through. And quite honestly, I'm like, hey, thanks for coming forward 3+ years later. Thanks for telling the truth now.
After you got hired by a network.
Has been done. After you've gone. And think about the lives that she's impacted. Think about the election workers that have gotten the death threats based on this. Think about FBI agents with the fundraising that went on after the classified documents case in Mar-a-Lago and everything that happened there. All those messages were pushed out by the RNC. So I want, if she's really going to change her tune, I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
I want her to tell the truth to people about what really was behind that.
Yeah, sure, Michael. I mean, if you're an election denier, you're a reality denier.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah. I mean, look, the truth bears no lie, and this is a part of the credibility issue with the former RNC chair. It's one thing to bring on a conservative. We're conservatives.
Yeah.
I'm a conservative. We just talked about the former president.
Conservatives.
I just laid out what I think he should do politically. We talked a little bit about what his voters likely want to hear from him. And I think the viewers, folks who are watching this program, they can understand that, okay, sure, Michael's a conservative, Olivia's a Republican, no big deal. But they want to be told the truth. People don't want to listen to someone who's telling lies. And those of us in the press, Jim, we've talked about this.
Oh, yeah.
We have a moral and ethical obligation, particularly in this climate, to tell the truth, to bring on truth bearers. And with all due respect to the former chairwoman, I'm not certain if she's that person. Now, that's not to say that she shouldn't be permitted some level of redemption. Yeah. She certainly should be given that opportunity, Jim. But is that the best platform? I don't think it is. And I think a lot of Americans would probably feel the same way.
Yeah. Well said, both of you. Thank you very much. The truth matters.
It does. Absolutely.
It does still matter. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Great discussion. Really appreciate it. And we are monitoring developments out of New York this morning at the courthouse and the Trump hearing. We're also following other breaking news. The CEO of Boeing, other executives announcing they are leaving that beleaguered company. That's next.
If you work in spaceflight, this is the worst possible thing that could ever happen. My dad died doing what he loved.
Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight, premieres Sunday, April 7th at 9 on CNN.
Life, diabetes. There's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna. Bring on the day.
Vinyl windows seem to be a typical choice here in the local area. Some companies even advertise high-quality vinyl. Ann Romer here. Before you invest in vinyl windows, listen to what Michael Smith of Renewal by Andersen has to say.
With our temperature swings, vinyl tends to warp, which causes condensation between the panes and drafts. And most vinyl windows just look very low end to begin with. Our customers don't want that.
And what are Renewal by Andersen's windows made of?
Our windows are made out of a thermopolymer composite material called Fibrex. It's beautiful like wood, but it doesn't require the maintenance of wood, and we engineered it to be 2 times stronger than vinyl. So you're getting a window that will really last.
Now this is innovation. You have a feature on your windows that allows for a better view.
Our TrueScene screens are made out of an ultra-fine stainless steel mesh, which is virtually invisible. You get less dirt buildup, more fresh air circulation, and a better view out of your windows.
Now, if we're talking about comfort, how much does the glass matter?
The glass in a window makes a huge difference. Our high-performance low E4 smart sunglass is infused with silver oxide. It's engineered to help keep the cold air outside in the winter and keep the warm air outside in the summer. It also blocks 95% of the harmful UV rays that fade your furniture and your hardwood floors.
Well, that's impressive, Michael. Thank you. And right now, Renewal by Andersen has a great offer for homeowners.
It's Renewal by Andersen's 31-day sales event. Before March 31st, save $377 on every window and save $777 on every patio door and entry door with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 12 months. Our 31-day sales event ends March 31st. For a free appointment during our sale, call 1-800-501-1400. That's 1-800-501-1400.
It's the most hosted show in late night. Put up your nukes! And they're back.
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Doing what they do best.
Every news outlet has different standards.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show is all new tonight at 11 on Comedy Central.
Every day, more dog people are deciding it's time for a fresh approach to pet food. Developed with vets, made from real meat and veggies, portioned for your dog, and delivered right to your door. It's smarter, healthier pet food.
What is the most obnoxious commercial airing right now?
J.C. Wentworth!
Important healthcare announcement. If people tell you your TV is too loud, or if listening in some environments has become too difficult, we are requesting your participation in a special program called the 30-Day Risk-Free Challenge. Hearing Life Hearing Centers are seeking people with hearing difficulties to evaluate a new 100% digital mini hearing aid now being released. All people with hearing aids or hearing difficulties are wanted to take part in this 30-day risk-free challenge evaluating this new high-tech device that sits discreetly behind your ear. This hearing aid is Bluetooth enabled and rechargeable. All hearing assessments are performed at no charge for those taking part in the challenge. Participants will try these hearing aids for 30 days. Now, to take part in this event, you must call. So please, get a pencil and write down the number below. Call us and take the Hearing Life 30-Day Risk-Free Challenge.
I'm Rosa Flores on the Arizona-Mexico border, and this is CNN.
All right, this morning we're learning about a major shakeup at Boeing. CEO Dave Calhoun is stepping down along with 2 other top company officials. CNN's Pete Montine joins us now. Pete, tell us more about this. I mean, this is a huge shakeup at Boeing.
And many have been calling for something like this for a while now. The only person to get the axe at Boeing before this was the head of the 737 MAX line, which many saw as a scapegoat. And now CEO Dave Calhoun is leaving along with Larry Kellner, the board chair, as well as Stan Deal, the head of Boeing Commercial Airplanes. Remember, Calhoun came in as Boeing's CEO after the 2 737 MAX crashes of 2018 and 2019, 346 people killed. Nobody died in the January 5th Alaska Airlines door plug blowout, but it exposed a huge quality control issue at Boeing. Calhoun said this in his message to employees. As you all know, Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, that accident was a watershed moment for Boeing. We must continue to respond to this accident with humility and complete transparency. There is some surprise in the aviation community that Calhoun is not leaving immediately. His resignation takes hold at the end of the year, but Calhoun notes there are these investigations taking place. Not only the NTSB investigation that found Boeing workers did not reinstall the door plug bolts at the factory in Renton, Washington, but also the FAA audit of Boeing quality control and a Department of Justice investigation to see if passengers on that flight may have been victims of a crime. The timing is telling here, and just last week, Boeing reported a huge financial loss in the first quarter. Boeing has also lost the confidence of some of its major customers. Alaska Airlines wants compensation from Boeing. United says its new plane orders are now in limbo. The saying in corporate America is the buck stops at the top, but in this case, really, the money is talking too here, Jim.
And people have been clamoring for this kind of a shakeup, and it's now happened. All right, Pete Montine, thank you very much. More breaking news coming into CNN right now. The United Nations Security Council just approved a draft resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza for the month of Ramadan. It also calls for the immediate and unconditional release of hostages and the urgent need to expand the flow of aid into Gaza. 14 nations voted in favor. The United States, we should note, abstained from the vote. We will continue to monitor that breaking news. More on all of this. We'll be right back.
Anderson Cooper 360, tonight at 8 on CNN.
It's just your mother and I want different things.
Which is why we got Sling TV.
So we can watch live and free TV all in one app?
That's right.
Sling is really keeping this family together.
You have no idea.
You have no idea.
At U-Haul, we know every family moves at their own pace.
Hi, Mom.
It's starting to snow. That's why we have U-Box. We can store it or ship it.
Thanks, you've been lifesavers.
How and when you want it. Reserve today at uhaul.com.
Upon his first day of retirement, Marcus Rogers made a contract with himself. I will never again work for another man or woman.
Or Todd.
Especially Todd. I lay down my badge, abandon my corporate phone plan, and I'll get a new plan with Consumer Cellular, without a contract, without sacrificing coverage.
Let's go, birds.
When freedom calls, we're here to answer.
It's the most hosted show in late night. Put up your nukes! And they're back.
I don't want to hear any more complaining.
Doing what they do best.
Every news outlet has different standards.
Comedy Central's The Daily Show is all new tonight at 11 on Comedy Central.
Money is the #1 cause of stress. But not for me. I found Facet Wealth. Facet helps with every financial decision, not just retirement planning. The best part? It's all virtual.
Check your financial wellness score at facet.com.
Jerry goes off grid almost every weekend, but now, a Friday last-minute meeting? Otter has Jerry covered with an AI meeting assistant to take notes and capture action items, so Jerry can go camping and be ready for Monday. Sign up for free. Visit otter.ai or download the app.
Look, she's just sitting here building her credit by...
I forgot you were here.
Self gives you credit for the rent you were going to pay anyways. Increase your score without increasing your debt. Free credit building for renters with Self.
Take control of your health by boosting your force field, the immune system. Aura tells you when your temperature is higher than normal. Live smarter, stronger, healthier with the Aura Ring.
Closed captioning brought to you by Mesobook.com.
Our firm only represents mesothelioma victims and their families. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, call us now.
This is CNN Breaking News.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to our special coverage. I'm Jim Acosta in Washington alongside Caitlin Collins in New York. And right now, Donald Trump is in court. The former president is repeating familiar false allegations of a supposed witch hunt, incorrectly calling his hush money criminal case a, quote, hoax. Today, for the first time in American history, we could learn when an ex-president stands criminal trial. The judge overseeing the case is expected to set a court date after Trump allegedly bribed a porn star to cover up their affair years ago. Meantime, his meticulously crafted image as a real estate tycoon also at risk. Trump's assets, including his, quote, babies, as he calls them, could be seized if he can't make a nearly $500 million bond payment in the 11th hour. I suppose it's the 12th and the 13th hour right now. Our coverage begins with the hush money hearing. CNN's Caitlin Collins is live in New York outside the courthouse. Caitlin, pretty Big day for Donald Trump. I mean, obviously, we could hear a hearing date and a trial date for this Alvin Bragg case to get going. But the prospect that some of these properties, you and I have covered Trump for a long time, it's almost unthinkable that authorities in New York could be going after these properties, but we might be here.
Yeah, it is central to his image. His wealth has always been at the center of that, something he campaigned on in 2016 and took him into the White House, and something that is now at real threat. But Jim, obviously his attorneys are not, that is not the foremost issue that they are dealing with right now, because those same attorneys are inside this courthouse behind me here in Manhattan, as we are waiting to see if the judge here, Judge Juan Merchan, decides when this case could go forward. This is the criminal hush money probe that was supposed to begin today, but was delayed because of documents that were not turned over to Trump's legal team. They are accusing the district attorney's office of a violation here, and that is the heart of what they're arguing about right now inside the courtroom behind us. We have CNN's Paula Reed and Kristen Holmes here with me. And Paula, we're getting live updates from inside the courtroom, and it's actually getting quite testy in there, where the judge has just raised his voice for the first time as he is pressing Trump's legal team about what is a pretty extraordinary allegation that they are making against the district attorney's office.
That's right. They have accused the district attorney's office of professional misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct. They've even suggested that they should be sanctioned. And the judge said, look, that's a, quote, incredibly serious, unbelievably serious accusation. Not only are you accusing the prosecutor's office of misconduct, but you're also trying to make me, the judge, complicit in it. And he pressed the Trump legal team to come up with some case law, some specifics to support this allegation. Because the reason we're here today for this hearing and not for the first day of the trial is that federal prosecutors handed over 100,000 documents. Now, that was not the Manhattan district attorney that did that. Those are federal prosecutors. So the judge here is pressing the Trump attorneys on why you can accuse the Manhattan district attorney's office of prosecutorial misconduct because the Justice Department didn't hand something over. Now, the Trump attorneys argue that the district attorney's office should have pushed for these documents themselves. They should have asked for these specific materials, and they're having a pretty intense exchange now with the judge. Now, again, this is the first time the judge has really raised his voice, saying the fact that they don't even have any case law to support this very serious accusation is, quote, really disconcerting. So our colleagues tell us that the judge, Judge Juan Merchan, he has been pretty level throughout the hearing, but he's gotten a lot more animated. And it's interesting because this shows that he's not going to tolerate just these throwaway accusations that someone is corrupt, right, or that they're engaging in misconduct. And he is holding their feet to the fire, asking for actual proof, support, case law for this accusation. So this is significant, and maybe a preview of how the judge will handle this trial.
And when Trump's legal team walked into this, Kristen, I mean, they clearly don't seem to actually think they're going to get it dismissed, even though they are asking for that and a delay if they don't get it dismissed. What was their tactic kind of going into this today when it came to these documents? Because right now they haven't been able to tell the judge a specific number of documents that they believe they'll have to review before this case can proceed.
What they wanted to do here is to try and explain that every single document that was turned over was relevant in some way, because the more documents that are relevant of this 100,000, the longer that this trial will be delayed, because then the legal team will have to actually be able to go through that. So really the strategy here is how can we draw this out as long as possible? As we've talked about, part of that is also, can we push this up close to the November election? They believe the closer this gets to November, the more difficult it's going to be to have a trial at that time, the more politically explosive it's going to be at that time. The other thing I wanted to point out here is one of the things that our colleagues were saying was what Trump was doing in the courtroom. A lot of leaning back in his chair, folding his arms, and looking at Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche has really become Donald Trump's favorite lawyer of the lawyers that he has. He believes that he's the fighter. He believes that he's out there. But this is interesting to see Todd Blanche having essentially a very tense moment with this judge. Donald Trump really wants to see his lawyers pushing the envelope, pushing for sanctions, pushing his people to call for this.
Well, and clearly what we are getting from witnessing this right now, listening to what questions the judge is asking, is he is very skeptical of Trump's allegations, Trump's legal team's allegations against the district attorney's office. And essentially what he seems to be asking is it the district attorney, Alvin Bragg's, obligation to get the Southern District of New York, to get them to turn over these documents?
And that's the heart of the disagreement here, because the Trump attorneys are saying, look, this was the district attorney's job. They should have gone to federal prosecutors and asked for all of this. But the judge is pushing back on that, saying, no, it's actually not, he calls them the people, because they represent the people of Manhattan, the people's job to do this. And I think this is important, because this is showing that the judge, not only is he upset at the fact that they made this accusation and cannot support it, he's really showing how he's going to handle a criminal trial here. He's not going to allow the Trump team to get away with making accusations they cannot support with facts or case law. And that is significant, because as we've reported so many times, this is part of defending the former president. You are not only playing for either a judge or a jury, you're also playing for your client and playing to your client often. And that can be difficult for attorneys when they're in a courtroom, particularly in front of a judge who here is going to make you show your work.
And they got one delay here, but it's not clear that they're going to get this further delayed today.
Yeah, that's what the judge is trying to nail down, okay, exactly how much evidence do we have that is relevant, because that'll determine how much time do you need to review it. So that's really at the core of what they're arguing about right now. Right now the case is adjourned until mid-April. It's unclear if the case will start in mid-April, if they'll get a little bit more time, if he'll do 30 days from March 25th. The math is not exactly clear where he's going to land. But really at the heart of this is this question of, why did you just get these documents now? And of these, how many are really relevant? How many do you need to review to be prepared to defend your client?
And the reason this matters is because if someone's at home, wondering, why do I care if it's the district attorney's obligation or the southern district attorney's to turn over these documents about Michael Cohen, it matters if this does get delayed even just by a few weeks, because it could clash with other trials being set, with the documents case being set, with the federal election interference case once we hear from the Supreme Court. If this case goes forward later, it could push those cases later, which would be a win in the Trump legal team's eyes.
Well, and I'll tell you that they thought this was a huge win. I mean, just this delay till April 15th. They were fully 100% planning to start their trial today. They believed they were going to. They were planning a campaign schedule around it. They still are telling me that they're going to probably likely start the campaign for just Wednesdays and Saturdays, the days that they're not in court, because eventually this trial is going to start. This was huge for them. They were happy about it. Now you're seeing they're kind of pushing the envelope, and it sounds like the judge believes they're pushing the envelope here. But this was good for them, and they want to continue to do that, because the whole goal is to push all those other trials past the election.
All right, Kristen Holmes, Paula Reed. Jim, obviously what is clear and what we are getting out of the courtroom right now is that this judge is deeply skeptical about the claims being made by the Trump legal team. The big question, of course, is whether or not that affects when he sets that trial date, and if he does so by the time they leave this courtroom today.
Yeah, absolutely, Caitlin. Let's continue to talk about this. Here with me now, CNN Chief Legal Analyst Laura Coates, CNN Chief Domestic Correspondent Phil Mattingly, and CNN Senior Legal Analyst and former federal prosecutor Ellie Honig. I mean, Laura, just to dive into what they were talking about a few moments ago, the judge kind of going after the defense team a few moments ago, saying you are literally accusing the Manhattan DA's office and the people assigned to this case of prosecutorial misconduct and of trying to make me complicit in it. And you don't have a single cite to support that position. That is not a good sign for the defense.
Good for this judge for standing up to this issue. It is a huge accusation that every prosecutor takes very seriously, because it's not just you standing up there. Remember, we're very interchangeable as prosecutors. It is on behalf of the jurisdiction itself. You are accusing the jurisdiction and the people of that jurisdiction of committing some sort of misconduct against this person. If you do not have a way to back it up, you should not say it. And this is a distinction between the court of public opinion and a court of law, where a judge is going to say, well, what do you have to support this? It's not a tweet. It's not a Truth Social. It is a courtroom where you're telling me that they have withheld documents from you intentionally with an eye towards taking away your due process and your fair trial. If you don't have that, you cannot say it. And so this judge is already telling us that they intend to ensure that this will be done by the book. You've already gotten one delay, but a delay based on nonsensical rhetoric or hyperbole or simply a lie is not going to cut it, nor should it.
Yeah, Ellie, it's one thing for Trump to say whatever he wants. His lawyers can't do that.
Yeah, that's
in front of a judge.
Absolutely right. A lawyer is an officer of the court. You can't just spout whatever you want unless you back it up. this is, as Laura said, this is not the political campaign trail where you just say whatever you want, fire off whatever you want, and it sort of plays itself out. You have to back up whatever you say here. And the key question that the judge seems to be focusing on is, was this some sort of intentional withholding of documents, Or was it inadvertent? And I will tell you that this type of problem where prosecutors realize sort of late in the game, whoops, we have all these extra documents we should turn over. It's not great, but it happens quite frequently because you're responsible as a prosecutor for everything in your possession. Now, that's been expanded over the years to include, for example, police officers, FBI agents who you may be working with. And I think the question this judge is probing is, does it include holding the state prosecutors responsible for what the feds had across the street? And it seems like he's leaning towards an answer of no.
And does that mean that the judge says, okay, well, just to cover our bases here, we're going to push this trial back a little bit longer? I mean, is that the potential outcome here?
It's conceivable, but if you're able to review the documents in time, in a timely manner, and they do not include things that are going to delay the prosecution's case or the defense's ability to actually defend themselves against the accusations, you would not give a gratuitous delay simply because you are alleging misconduct. It's got to be tied to something for a reason, and every prosecutor wants to ensure that the next case they prosecute will also be given the same credibility and integrity assigned as this one. And so this judge is not going to likely allow for simply a statement that is inaccurate or unsubstantiated to say, all right, well, you know what, because it could have happened, I'll indefinitely give you a delay.
You know what's interesting about that, particularly in this case, on this day, when he's also dealing with what Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, what he's facing with the effort to try and secure a bond, also in the wake of the E. Jean Carroll defamation case, which he's already secured a bond for, more than $90 million, which is, I think, hampering his liquidity a little bit right now, I would presume, is consequences, right? It is a different ball game in the court of law, and I feel like we've been talking about this or around this over the course of the last several months because it hasn't actually been happening. We saw it play out in the defamation case. We saw it play out in the New York Attorney General's case where he lost that case when it came to fraud. When he's in a courtroom, the antics don't play, the lies can't stand up, and there are consequences for trying to play that game. And I think while this is certainly a more micro scale, you're seeing it on maybe a less hyperbolic way that we see on Truth Social, this is why this moment is different than perhaps what we've seen over the course of the last 10 or 11 months. Yes, politically, he has found a way to benefit from something that no politician should ever be able to benefit from. And there's no question about that. He is steamrolled to the Republican nomination. But it becomes different when he ends up in court, when he's dealing with a judge, when his lawyers have to either defend his statements or try and play off his statements in a legal setting where they simply cannot. And that changes the game a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's been quite good at turning these courthouses into his campaign rallies, but as things get a bit more serious with trial dates and things being collected and seized by the authorities there in New York, perhaps he doesn't relish it quite as much. Guys, all right, thanks very much. Stay with me. We'll continue to monitor that Manhattan courthouse for those developments. But today is also the deadline for the former president, as we were just saying a few moments ago, to post that nearly $500 million bond in his civil fraud judgment. The New York Attorney General has been threatening to freeze those bank accounts, possibly other properties. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. Stay with us.
Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight, premieres Sunday, April 7th at 9 on CNN.
Men tell us when they use Just for Men to eliminate gray, there's a great before and after. Then there's the after. That boost you get when you look and feel your best. And that's why more men choose Just for Men.
We had to take out our old gas heating. That was a huge project. I was so overwhelmed, so I started contacting people off of Angie to work with people that knew what they were doing. It was a game changer.
Get started today at Angie.com.
It's such a pretty world today. Look at the sunshine. And every day is the same since I met you.
Book in the Hotels.com app to find your perfect somewhere.
It's a new day, one where our shared values propel us towards a more secure future. Through AUKUS, a partnership built upon cutting-edge American, Australian, and British technologies, we'll develop state-of-the-art, next-generation submarines and build something stronger together, securing decades of peace and prosperity for America and our allies. We are going forward and staying forward together.
COVID-19. I'm not waiting. If it's COVID,
Paxlovid.
Paxlovid is an oral treatment for adults with mild to moderate COVID-19 and a high risk factor for it becoming severe. It does not prevent COVID-19.
My symptoms are mild now, but I'm not risking it. If it's COVID, Paxlovid.
Paxlovid must be taken within the first 5 days of symptoms and helps stop the virus from multiplying in your body.
Taking Paxlovid with certain medicines can lead to serious or life-threatening side effects or affect how it or other medicines work, including hormonal birth control. It's critical to tell your doctor about all the medicines you take because certain tests or changes in their dosage may be needed. Tell your doctor if you have kidney or liver problems, HIV-1, are or plan to become pregnant or breastfeed. Don't take Paxlovid if you're allergic to nirmatrelvir, ritonavir, or any of its ingredients. Serious side effects can include allergic reactions, some severe, like anaphylaxis, and liver problems. These are not all the possible side effects, so talk to your doctor.
Commercially insured patients may pay as little as $0, and the U.S. government is making Paxlovid available to Medicare, Medicaid, and uninsured patients for free. Terms and conditions apply to both programs. Learn more at Paxlovid.com/Paxess and ask your doctor today.
If it's COVID, Paxlovid. Not flossing well? Then add the whoa of Listerine to your routine. New science shows Listerine is 5 times more effective than floss at reducing plaque above the gum line for a cleaner, healthier mouth. Listerine, feel the whoa.
Smile, you found it. The feeling of finding psoriasis can't filter out the real you. So go ahead, live unfiltered with the one and only Sotyktu, a once-daily pill for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis and the chance at clear or almost clear skin. It's like the feeling of finding you're so ready for your close-up, or finding you don't have to hide your skin, just your background. Once daily Sotyktu was proven better, getting more people clearer skin than the leading pill. Don't take if you're allergic to Sotyktu. Serious reactions can occur. Sotyktu can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB. Serious infections, cancers including lymphoma, muscle problems, and changes in certain labs have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, liver or kidney problems, high triglycerides, or had a vaccine or plan to. Sotyktu is a TYK2 inhibitor. TYK2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Sotyktu has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. There's only one Sotyktu, so ask for it by name. So clearly you. Sotyktu.
So, what'd you get?
2 Nashville hot tenders and 3 Mandarin orange tenders.
Nice. What about you?
3 classic tenders.
4 big butterfly shrimp. 4 of a kind, baby. I win.
Is it always a competition?
You can't handle the shrimp.
We'll see about that. Yeah, we will.
Sanity needs a safe space.
You have a show where right and left talk to each other.
CNN presents an encore presentation of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, Saturday at 8 on CNN.
And welcome back. We are live outside the courthouse here in Manhattan, where former President Donald Trump and his legal team have been inside for the last 2 hours in what has just culminated in being a very testy exchange between Trump's lead defense lawyer here and the judge who could determine when this trial goes to case. This is the trial that is a criminal hush money probe. You see the former president as he just left the courtroom a few moments ago for a 45-minute recess. He said thank you, but nothing else of any substance about what had just transpired inside that courtroom. We have CNN's Paula Reed and Kristen Holmes here with me. And Paula Reed, what just went on in there is incredibly significant because the judge was essentially questioning Todd Blanche, who is Trump's lead attorney here, over this argument that they've been making about the discovery of these materials, and was basically saying, well, you used to be an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York's office. You know how this works.
Completely.
And you could have asked for these sooner, but you waited.
Yeah, the judge clearly skeptical of the idea that somehow the district attorney's office is at fault or guilty of prosecutorial misconduct because the defense attorney did not subpoena these documents until January. But I want to stop you for just a second, because while you were just talking, our colleague Kara Scannell reporting that an appeals court has ruled on this bond issue. We know the former president he had to post over $460 million today, and we've learned that a New York Court of Appeals has given Trump 10 additional days to post a bond of $175 million. Now that would cover the $464 million judgment against him in the civil fraud trial. So this is significant because this reduces the amount that he needs to post and also gives him 10 additional days. Now, there was a concern today that if he wasn't able to do this, that the Attorney General, Letitia James, she could move to start seizing his assets. But now we're learning that the appeals court has weighed in here. They've ruled that he only needs to post $175 million. Still a lot of money, but less than half of what he had to post before, and he now has 10 days to do that. So that is a significant win for him.
Because and also we typically don't hear from the appeals court on Mondays. Even Trump's team was under the belief that they would only make an argument on or a ruling on Tuesdays or Thursdays. So while they've been inside this room, the appeals court has just said not only does he not have to pay the full amount, he only has to pay $175 million. They've been trying, I believe, for $100 million, but he also has 10 more days to come up with that $175 million in this case.
I'm going to read this. So, yeah, this is a huge win for him. I'm going to let Kristen take it for what she's hearing from the Trump team, and I'll read this.
An enormous win, because the fact that he would not have to pay the huge sum of nearly $500 million, which he couldn't pay, which we were waiting essentially to see what's going to happen. We had absolutely no word from Trump's attorneys whether or not he could post the bond. We were essentially under the impression he had not come up with as you said, rabbit in the hat for the 11th hour, that it was going to shift now to this idea of whether or not Letitia James was going to start seizing these assets. The other thing to point out here, when they approached those 30 or so underwriters, one of the big complaints that they were essentially having was that underwriters don't usually go for this amount of nearly $500 million. They were saying that the underwriters were saying, okay, we'll do $100 million. That's kind of our cap. Now there's a little bit of wiggle room, right? It's $175 million, still an enormous amount of money, a lot closer to what they were willing to do in the first place than that $500 million mark. So now they can go back to some of these places and see, would you be willing to do this? Also, he has the 10 days to figure out, does he have any of the assets he can add to this?
Well, and this is a huge, surprise even for Trump's legal team, who walked into this courthouse this morning for the criminal case to figure out what's going on there, which I should know it's going about as badly as it could inside that courtroom right now. But this is huge news for them to come out and hear that not only do they have more time here, but it's way less than what they thought that they would have to pay, and maybe more palatable to these insurance giants to help underwrite that.
Yeah, this is really significant because, as we talked about today, even by Trump standards, this is such a consequential day. He's in here potentially learning about when the first criminal trial he will face will begin, and then he was facing the possibility that he would not be able to post this bond, and then the Attorney General would be seizing his assets. His identity for so long has been as a successful billionaire businessman. His name adorns buildings in this city and around the world. And we had talked about earlier the fact that he had appealed. We didn't expect to get a decision today, but here, this is a huge relief for him, and it does make it possible, though not certain, that he might be able to post this bond, seeing that they've made it less than half and given him 10 days to figure out how to potentially come up with this money. So this is a huge relief for Trump, and let's see, we'll start working the phones and see if they can come up with this money.
Well, and I think what is notable here is that as everyone at home is learning about this, as we are learning about this, Trump and his legal team are just learning about this because they've been inside that courtroom for 2 hours arguing something entirely different and unaware that this was a ruling that was coming today. They were expecting if it was coming, it would come tomorrow or maybe Thursday.
And I think that they weren't necessarily holding their breath that this was going to change at all. We talk about this a lot, what they asked
weren't counting on the appeals court.
Yes, they weren't counting on the appeals court, that they thought that maybe they were going to have to end up trying to figure out what happens next in terms of seizing assets, in terms of Letitia James moving forward. We talk a lot about what Trump's legal team does in court and what their expectation is. A lot of it is done to kind of try to delay or to come up with new solutions. It's exhausting every avenue. Again, that's what your lawyers are paid to do. That's what they should be doing. This case, I think it was really 50-50 in their minds as to whether or not the appeals court would come back and have any changes at all. Particularly having both of these is a good thing for Donald Trump.
Yeah, and Jim, this is notable because this is these two moments that we've been talking about all morning, these twin moments. What is happening right now inside the court has not been going well for Donald Trump and his legal team. The judge has been kind of reprimanding his attorney, but they just walked out for that 45-minute recess to some very welcome news from this appeals court when it comes to that bond now being lowered and having more time to front that bond.
Yeah, Caitlin, Trump has been referring to some of these properties as his, quote, babies. So perhaps the babies are safe for now. Let me go back to our panel here in Washington, Phil Mattingly. Trump catches a break. on the bond issue.
There's no question about it. I think it's important, to the extent, without getting too deep into the financial weeds, to explain why this is so important and why the initial bond that had been set was so extraordinarily difficult for him to be able to meet. It wasn't just that it was $465 million, which was the judgment. It was that the way insurers work to underwrite that, they almost without fail require 120% of the bond itself. So that pushed it over $550 million. The point was also made, I think it was by Caitlin or by Kristen, that these insurers themselves usually aren't trying to go over $100 million. It is not normal. This is the size of this. There's not a lot of precedent when it comes particularly to an individual and a very small company. This isn't some massive public company that has huge revenues, has huge access to credit lines at major banks. Most Donald Trump's banking relationships had all but disintegrated over the course of the last several years. And so not only while Donald Trump is liquid, he's not that liquid. They're requiring cash and cash equivalents. They are saying no to any property. Most of Donald Trump's value is in property. What this allows, by reducing this by about $300 million, giving him 10 days to find it, is one, he has cash. He's made clear he has cash and cash equivalents, and actually for Donald Trump, the records actually back that up. So he does have some cash. The other thing that's really interesting here, and Ellie was talking about this last week, there's the Truth Social element of this. There's the merger that closed last week or is in the process of closing, could start trading as a public company by Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. While those shares, which are worth billions of dollars for Donald Trump, would technically be under a lockup agreement for 6 months, he wouldn't be able to use them, he wouldn't be able to sell them. He may be able to get a waiver to take out a loan against them. Right now, that would be impossible without a waiver. If the board gives him a waiver, that's another avenue, significantly less money, more time, and opens up some options that perhaps didn't exist.
Ellie, tell us, did he catch a break here? He has 10 days to fork over $175 billion. That's still a lot of money.
But, yes, but oh my goodness, did he catch a break?
But the buildings may be safe.
For now, for sure. So two big things happened. First, he got the extra time, 10 days. Time is very valuable here. But the amount of the bond he has to post has been cut by more than in half. And here comes the appeals court at the 11th hour and 59th minute and 59th second to give him this huge reduction. I just read through the order issued by the Court of Appeals. It's 2 pages long. There's next to nothing in terms of here's why we've come in with this huge reduction. But the fact that they've issued a substantial reduction, it happens. There are other cases we've seen where courts of appeals have come in and reduced bonds amounts by more than this, by 80, 90%. Yeah. There is some, I think, implicit judgment in here that the amount of the bond, the full $500+ million, was unnecessary or excessive. It's not necessarily that they're passing judgment on the case as a whole, but what the Court of Appeals is saying is we, the court system, will be fine with a bond of $175 million.
And remember the purpose of the bond. This is not the full decision as to whether an appeal or the lower court ruling was wrong. In order to actually go through the appellate process for Trump, he had to have posted this bond. Now, many would look at this issue and say, well, hold on a second. That doesn't seem fair inherently that you have to resolve this money prior to the full appeal process happening. So that take up with legislature if that's your issue, by the way, and the court rules. But the court is likely saying right now, we are confident that with this amount of money, that there is enough there to support that he can go forward with the procedural aspects of the appeal. I wouldn't read the tea leaves to suggest that they think that Engoron was wrong in his ultimate ruling or that the proportionality is so skewed. But certainly this is one heck of a break for, yet again, Teflon Don.
Yeah, all right. Caitlin, it sounds as though, Trump is not going to have to turn over those babies. He was saying last week, I've got $500 million. Of course, that was after he was saying he was going to have to sell things at fire sale prices. But I can hear the Trump team breathing a sigh of relief right now, collectively at this point, it seems.
Yeah, but maybe not too big of a sigh of relief, because right now they're also facing quite testy questioning from the judge here, Judge Juan Merchan, at the courthouse behind me in New York. This is in the criminal hush money probe that was supposed to start today, was then delayed because documents were not turned over to Trump's legal team in sufficient time, they argued, and now it has become the point of intense questioning inside this courtroom. CNN's Kara Scannell was in there for all of it. And Kara, as this questioning was going on, what can you describe to us about what questions the judge had for Trump's team and what the exchange was like, as well as Trump's demeanor as all of this was playing out?
Well, the judge was really homing in on all the allegations that Trump has made in this, including the allegation that the district attorney's office was working with federal prosecutors and trying to withhold information from Trump's team. The judge saying, this is an unbelievably serious claim. and pushing Trump's attorneys to back up those claims. And he became slightly frustrated by the end of it because he was saying that they haven't actually supported the serious allegations that they made. He said, in fact, it wasn't obstruction. He thought the people, the government, went above and beyond what they had to do in order to provide these documents that Trump's lawyers were trying to get from the federal prosecutors who were bringing their case against Michael Cohen 5 years ago. And so, he's really pressing Trump's lawyers to try to defend why they were seeking this relief now. And he said he was detecting a pattern, and this pattern was that the judge said he would read a case and read it one way, he would see facts and interpret them one way, and Trump's lawyers would interpret them repeatedly a different way. And so he was saying he didn't really understand why that was happening. So signaling that he is not believing Trump's side of this, and he doesn't see, based on the evidence before him, he said he read through all of the materials, all of the correspondence between the prosecutors, both at the state level and the federal level, and Trump's lawyers, and didn't see the facts to support Trump's claim that there was some kind of prosecutorial misconduct. Trump during this whole time has been sitting at the defense table. He's been largely either leaning forward or leaning back, listening to the arguments, pretty intently looking over at the attorneys, whispering at times to one of the lawyers who's working with him. But otherwise, he's been pretty quiet. The judge kind of surprisingly took a 45-minute break. It's unclear if that's a signal that he is going to make some kind of determination, since he has laid out pretty clearly that he doesn't think Trump's lawyers have supported the serious claims that they have levied. He seemed at some points a little frustrated, asking, why are we even here based on the record before him? So we're expecting everyone to reconvene in the courtroom about 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then we'll see what the judge says if he is going to make a ruling in this case. As for now, this trial is set to start on April 15th. Trump's lawyers, in addition to the claims of prosecutorial misconduct, were looking for additional time, citing the Jewish holidays, saying that there's also spring break in New York. The judge has up to now not looked to give much weight to those arguments, but will be interesting to see if he does address any of that when we do get back inside court in a short while.
Yeah, the judge seems quite skeptical of the arguments that Trump's team is making. How did Todd Blanche do under this questioning by the judge?
So Todd is an experienced trial attorney. He was a federal prosecutor for 13 years, and that is something that Judge Merchan had pushed back against him, saying that he understood the rules and how this worked. Todd Blanche, though, he was responding to the judge. He was saying, he wasn't trying to be disrespectful of the judge, but, clearly taking a lot of heat in terms of these tough questions from the judge, asking him to defend the allegations that they made, the serious allegations that the prosecutors had engaged in any kind of misconduct and should be sanctioned for it. Caitlin.
All right, Kara Scannell, you've been our eyes and ears inside the courtroom. We'll let you get back inside there to see what this judge does decide. Paula Reed is still here with me. And Paula, I think this is a really significant moment in the sense of what we're watching, which is Trump getting this really welcome news from an appeals court here in the state of New York, saying that he has 10 more days to pay a much smaller bond in the civil judgment, the civil fraud judgment that was made by Judge Engoron. Meanwhile, here in the courthouse behind us, we're in the middle of this 45-minute break. We're waiting to see what the judge decides on the other side of this. It could be very well when they believe this trial should proceed and how much time the judge believes that they need here. But he seems quite skeptical of what they've been arguing here in order to get more of a delay.
Yeah, he's highly skeptical of this accusation that the district attorney engaged in prosecutorial misconduct and somehow conspired to withhold these documents. And the judge is making it clear, if you're going to make those kinds of accusations, you best come prepared to show your work with case law, with facts. They couldn't do that here. And that's what really drew the ire of the judge. And as we see in all the other criminal cases, the Trump team is always accusing prosecutors of some kind of misconduct, of some kind of conspiracy. They do it in the federal case, they do it in Georgia, they do it here. But Judge Juan Merchan making it clear in his courtroom, in this case, if you make those kinds of very serious allegations, you have to be able to support it. And here, they couldn't do it. It was interesting, our colleagues in the courtroom report that just before he gavelled out for this break, he said, I'm not even sure, why exactly we're here. But we hope that it's odd that we're here. But I hope when they come back, they will lay out the trial date, because that's really the most significant thing that we're looking for today. Does he delay this again? 30, 60, 90 days? There's a huge range in terms of what the parties are asking for. But having clarity on that, it's really why we're here today.
Yeah, and I think, covering Trump, he's always had a bunch of different legal teams and lawyers. One person that has been at the forefront of this, though, recently is Todd Blanche, the attorney who's the one that Kara was just talking about under that questioning by the judge here. Trump is obviously watching every move by his attorneys very closely. He has great influence at times over how they act in the courtroom as opposed to maybe how they would act if their client, especially the former president of the United States, who likes to have a lot of say in the legal tactics, was sitting right beside him.
He's a challenging client, to say the least, and you watch lawyers struggle with this, right? They know what he wants to hear, but there are things that, for example, Judge Juan Merchan would not allow them to get away with accusing prosecutors of misconduct without supporting it with case law. So what Trump would like to hear and what the judge in this case will allow, two different things. And you see so often his lawyers struggling with this. They know they are bound by certain parameters, be it a case law, be it the rules of conduct that they have to abide by. And that's hard when you're trying to play to an audience of one. And notably, the Supreme Court is probably the only place I can say that we've seen over the past few years where his lawyers didn't do that at all in the oral arguments over putting him back on the ballot. You saw them just completely ignore who their client was and just focus on the case law, and they were successful there.
Yeah, especially with Todd Blanche, someone who knows this system very well, worked in the Southern District of New York. Paula Reed will continue to watch this. We are in the middle of this 45-minute recess. We are waiting to see what happens when Trump, his legal team, and the prosecutors and the judge return to the courtroom here in just a matter of moments, as the judge could be set to decide when this criminal hush money trial will proceed, as it did not like it was initially scheduled for today, but also to see Trump's reaction as they have now just also learned of this major news from the New York Appeals Court that he has 10 more days to put up a bond, a much smaller bond than he had initially been scheduled to pay. We'll continue to watch all of this and be right back in just a moment.
My fellow citizens, you need to be better at being normal. When you're not normal, it makes me want you to be dead. So, be better at being normal. Yep, good.
The Regime, streaming exclusively on Max.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, 25 vitamins and minerals, and a new fiber blend with a prebiotic.
Oh, what a good time we will have. You can make it happen, girl.
Try dietary supplements from Voltaren for healthy joints.
Hey, you seeing this? Wait, where's the dish? There ain't one. You're telling me you can get direct TV, the good stuff, and you don't need a satellite dish? Oh, I used to love doing my business on those things. You're one sick pigeon. Them dishes kept the rain off our beaks. We just have different priorities is all. Satellite-free direct TV. Never thought I'd see the day. Well, our lifespans are quite short.
Stream DirecTV without a satellite dish.
I'm gonna do this thing with my neck, just for a bit.
Type 2 diabetes?
Discover the Ozempic Trizone. Ozempic. I got the power of 3. I lowered my A1C, CV risk, and lost some weight.
In studies, the majority of people reached an A1C under 7 and maintained it.
I'm under 7.
Ozempic lowers the risk of major cardiovascular events such as stroke, heart attack, or death in adults also with known heart disease.
I'm lowering my risk.
Adults lost up to 14 pounds.
I lost some weight.
Ozempic isn't for people with type 1 diabetes. Don't share needles or pens or reuse needles. Don't take Ozempic if you or your family ever had medullary thyroid cancer or have multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2 or if allergic to it. Stop Ozempic and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, or an allergic reaction. Serious side effects may include pancreatitis. Gallbladder problems may occur. Tell your provider about vision problems or changes. Taking Ozempic with a sulfonylurea or insulin may increase low blood sugar risk. Side effects like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea may lead to dehydration, which may worsen kidney problems. Living with type 2 diabetes?
Ask about the power of 3 with Ozempic. So, what'd you get?
2 Nashville hot tenders and 3 Mandarin orange tenders.
Nice. What about you?
3 classic tenders.
4 butterfly shrimp. 4 of a kind, baby. I win. Ooh.
Oh, is it always a competition?
I am the shrimp bot.
With Fast Signs, create factory-grade visual solutions to perfect your process. Fast Signs, make your statement.
Zyrtec allergy relief works fast and lasts a full 24 hours, so Dave can be the
Deliverer of dance.
Okay, Dave. let's be more than our allergies. Seize the day with Zyrtec.
At Morgan Stanley, old school hard work meets bold new thinking. At 88 years old, we still see the world with the wonder of new eyes, helping you discover untapped possibilities and relentlessly working with you to make them real. Old school grit, new world ideas. Morgan Stanley.
Important healthcare announcement. If people tell you your TV is too loud, or if listening in some environments has become too difficult, we are requesting your participation in a special program called the 30-Day Risk-Free Challenge. Hearing Life Hearing Centers are seeking people with hearing difficulties to evaluate a new 100% digital mini hearing aid now being released. All people with hearing aids or hearing difficulties are wanted to take part in this 30-day risk-free challenge evaluating this new high-tech device that sits discreetly behind your ear. This hearing aid is Bluetooth enabled and rechargeable. All hearing assessments are performed at no charge for those taking part in the challenge. Participants will try these hearing aids for 30 days. Now, to take part in this event, you must call. So please get a pencil and write down the number below. Call us and take the Hearing Life 30-Day Risk-Free Challenge.
I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and this is CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
That's right, some breaking news to tell you about. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just canceled his country's delegation's trip to Washington. Two of his top advisors were set to leave for D.C. tonight. Let's go straight to the White House and CNN's Arlette Saenz. Arlette, I have to assume this decision by Netanyahu is going to have reverberations over there at the White House. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Jim, the White House is already responding. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said it was disappointing to learn the news that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had canceled the visit by these two senior Israeli officials to meet with officials here at the White House to discuss planning for a possible operation into Rafah. Now, this comes after Netanyahu had threatened to cancel the trip if the U.S. did not veto a resolution at the UN Security Council that called for an immediate ceasefire as well as the unconditional release of hostages. The U.S. ended up abstaining in that vote. Kirby saying that it's not a change in the U.S. position, but instead that the U.S. couldn't support it because it did not include a condemnation of Hamas. But abstaining from it allowed this to move forward, which has really rankled officials over in Israel. And it comes as the White House had been preparing for these meetings with its Israeli officials to talk about alternative paths forward to an operation in Rafah. That is something that the White House has been warning about for weeks. They wanted to see some type of concrete plan that would ensure the protection and evacuation of the 1.4 million Palestinian civilians who are in Rafah. Netanyahu has vowed to go ahead with an operation with or without the support of the U.S. They had been hoping to have that meeting this week to talk to the Israelis in person about possible other steps that they could take. But even though this meeting that was scheduled or is expected to happen a bit later in the week, even though that is not happening now, there is expected to be meetings today and tomorrow with Israeli Defense Minister Gallant. He is in town starting this afternoon for a meeting with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. The focus of that meeting was expected to be on the release of hostages and surging more humanitarian aid in, but certainly the White House will try to use this meeting to also talk about planning for Rafah. Gallant is also expected to meet with the Secretary of Defense as well as Secretary of State while he was in town. But the cancellation of this trip really lays bare the latest tension point in the fraying relationship between the U.S. And Israel. And it really calls into question what the U.S. influence will be like with Israeli officials as they are planning these types of operations going forward. So we will see what else comes from the White House today, but they are initially expressing disappointment with the fact that Netanyahu has canceled this meeting. They say that they will find other ways to try to press the Israelis on the issue of Rafah, as there is great concern here about what could happen to the civilians if an operation were to proceed.
All right. Yeah, another example, Arlette, of the very building tensions between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Biden. We're going to keep our eyes on all of that. I know you will as well. Arlette, thank you very much. In the meantime, as Donald Trump's legal reality begins to bite, he's turning to Truth Social to drum up support and cash. We'll talk about that next. You're live in the CNN Newsroom.
Columbia, Houston, com check.
We hear nothing.
A space shuttle accident is usually not one thing. It's a series of events.
Is that part of the wing coming apart?
Space Shuttle Columbia, the final flight, premieres Sunday, April 7th at 9 on CNN.
Cracked windshield? Schedule with SafeFlight, and we'll come to you to fix it. This customer was enjoying her morning walk. We texted her when we were on our way, and she could track us and see exactly when we'd arrive.
I have a few more minutes. Let's go.
We came to her with service that fit her schedule.
You must be Pascal.
Nice to meet you. We got right to work with a replacement she could trust. We come to you for free. Schedule now for free mobile service at safelight.com.
SafeLight Repair, SafeLight Replace.
When dry eye symptoms keep coming back, inflammation might be to blame. Over-the-counter eye drops can provide temporary relief. Xiidra can provide lasting relief. It targets inflammation that can cause dry eye disease. Xiidra treats the signs and symptoms of dry eye disease. Don't use if you're allergic to Xiidra. Common side effects include eye irritation, discomfort or blurred vision when applied, and unusual taste sensation. Why wait? Ask your doctor about a 90-day prescription and pay as little as $0. Xiidra.
Jorge has always put the ones he loves first. But when it comes to caring for his teeth, he's let his own maintenance take a back seat. Well, maybe it's time to shift gears on that. Because Aspen Dental has the latest technology and equipment with a staff that goes out of their way to provide exceptional care. Plus free exams and x-rays for new patients without insurance and 20% off treatment plans. Making it easier to get started with quality care. It's one more way Aspen Dental is in your corner.
Have you heard? Sling TV offers the news you love for less. Wait, you look and sound just like me. Actually, I am you. Because I'm the same news programs on Sling for less. You mean you're me, but for less money? A lot less. I'm all your favorite news programs and more on Sling, starting at just $40 a month. Everything great about me, but for less money, which makes me greater. Don't you think? It's the same news for less, starting at $40 a month.
Doug.
Hello, Ghostbusters. It's Doug of Doug and Limu. We help people customize and save hundreds on car insurance with Liberty Mutual. Anyway, we got a bit of a situation here. Sure, I can hold. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Ghostbusters Frozen Empire in theaters now.
Detect this. Living with HIV, Robert learned he can stay undetectable with fewer medicines. That's why he switched to Dovato. Dovato is a complete HIV treatment for some adults. No other complete HIV pill uses fewer medicines to help keep you undetectable than Dovato. Detect this. Marnina learned that most HIV pills contain 3 or 4 medicines. Dovato is as effective with just 2. If you have hepatitis B, don't stop Dovato without talking to your doctor. Don't take Dovato if you're allergic to its ingredients or taking Difetilide. This can cause serious or life-threatening side effects. If you have a rash or allergic reaction symptoms, stop Dovato and get medical help right away. Serious or life-threatening lactic acid buildup and liver problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have kidney or liver problems or if you are pregnant, breastfeeding, or considering pregnancy. Dovato may harm an unborn baby. Most common side effects are headache, nausea, diarrhea, trouble sleeping, tiredness, and anxiety. Detect this. You could stay undetectable with fewer medicines. Ask your doctor about Dovato.
Meet the Jennifers. Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. Each planning their future through the Chase mobile app. Gen X is planning a summer in Portugal with some help from JP Morgan Wealth Plan. Let's go, Whiskers. Gen Y is working with a banker to budget for her birthday. You only turned 30 once. And Gen Z, her credit's golden. Hello, new apartment. 3 gens getting ahead with Chase. Solutions that grow with you. One bank for now, for later, for life. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Closed captioning brought to you by Gilt. Visit Gilt.com today for up to 70% off designer brands.
Gilt has the designers that get your heart racing. At insider prices, new every day. Hurry, they'll be gone in a flash. Designer sales at up to 70% off. Shop Gilt.com today.
More now on this morning's major breaking news. An appeals court ruling that former President Donald Trump must pay a $175 million bond within 10 days. That is down a lot from the nearly $500 million payment he was previously told to pony up. Let's discuss now with CNN political commentator and Republican strategist Alice Stewart, CNN political commentator and former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign, Karen Finney, and CNN political commentator and Spectrum News host Errol Lewis. Guys, great to see all of you. Errol, I mean, for a while there, perhaps folks thought we were going to see love it or list it, the Trump seized assets edition. That maybe that's not going to happen now. He has to pony up a fraction of what was originally thought was going to be a whopping nearly $500 million. Here we go again. He continues to defy gravity and catches another lucky break.
Well, that's one way to look at it, Jim. Another way to look at it is that close to $250 million of his company's fortune is now wrapped up in litigation, and we're not done yet. So the toll that this is taking on him, both personally and politically, I think is enormous. This is not somebody who wanted to have to go out and use